Christopher Nolan has returned, and at this point it's safe to say that his movies feel like big cinematic events. This time he's got an all-star cast, mythological beings, and the fury of the gods adding to the epic scope. Join us as we discuss the Odyssey. Welcome everyone to the Collector's Cut. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
Don't look for the gods in men. You'll always be disappointed.
This is a movie podcast. We get together, we talk about a movie we watched. We work through seasons usually. We'll have like a director, an actor, a franchise, some kind of theme to work on for 6 to 8 weeks. That's not what we're doing right now, because we already did a Christopher Nolan season when Oppenheimer was coming out. We did pretty much all of his movies, aside from his Batman movies, back then. So we thought we'll just sneak in one episode, because he's got a new movie out. We'll just sneak this in before the next season begins, and that is what we're going to do today. So we, of course, went and saw The Odyssey, which just came out this past weekend, and we're going to talk about that. We will... as silly as this might sound, given how old the story is, we will start spoiler-free. One, because not everyone knows the story, and two, because even if you do, how it's handled, how it's interpreted, those kind of things are something you may not want to actually know before seeing it. So, but if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, hit the like button, helps out a bunch if you do. You can, of course, support everything over on Patreon and get some bonus stuff, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So, yes, Christopher Nolan's next big movie is The Odyssey, and it definitely feels like his choice in projects has evolved over the years. Like, I feel like you can pretty much divvy up his career into at least two halves, right? You've got everything up till about Interstellar is the first half of his career, and then everything after Interstellar feels like the second half of his career. Now, eventually, assuming he keeps going for a long time, there might be like a third phase, even a fourth perhaps. But right now, I feel like you can divvy up into those two halves.
I agree with you in terms of like theming, and it feels like scale of projects and like how he does stuff. But I do think that the more clear defining line for me is Dark Knight, where it felt like everything up to Dark Knight was like, he's working, he's doing his stuff, he's got his craft out, and then after Dark Knight broke everything, he was just able to do whatever he wanted.
Sure. I'm thinking more in terms of the types of stories tackling, the types of, because like Interstellar still felt like it was kind of in that kind of, I guess, sci-fi era. Now, obviously Tenet exists, so it's not like he gave up sci-fi after Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar, but it does feel like he's pivoted more towards, he'll do a war movie, he'll do a drama biopic, which is what Oppenheimer was. He'll do, the Odyssey, I guess, an epic, I guess you just call it, and leave it there. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting to kind of examine these different halves of his career and whatnot. But I was thinking about that as I was coming out of this movie, actually, just how different the types of movie that he's doing now is compared to before. So, more thoughts on that in a bit, once we've got thoughts on this movie a little bit more in the way. But I guess the obvious question up first is, how familiar were you with The Odyssey as a story?
I'd say fairly familiar. I can't say that I've ever like sat down and chosen to read the whole thing, but I definitely remember it from school, from classes, going through it. I don't think there was really any part of the movie where I was like, I don't remember that in terms of like general adaptations. Now, obviously, how it approaches it is within its own thing, but for the most part, I remembered the story as much as it was being presented on screen.
Yeah, I'm the complete opposite. I have never read or seen any version of The Odyssey in my life. There's a couple of little things just from cultural osmosis that you can't help but pick up a little bit. I had a pretty big moment as I was watching this where I had like a light bulb go off, where I this might sound silly to some people, but I never knew the Trojan horse was from The Odyssey. So
technically incorrect, but only because the Iliad exists, which is the pairing with the Odyssey. There's the Iliad, which is where it comes from, and then the Odyssey. But yes.
But the point I'm making is, I was doing Leonardo DiCaprio thing. I was like, that's a Trojan horse.
Yeah,
This is the
yeah.
Trojan horse. Like I had that moment as I was watching this, and that
Right.
might sound silly to some people, but we never did the Odyssey in school. We never studied it. We never read
That's
any
fair.
part of it. I've never seen any interpretation of it. Obviously, I've heard of it. I've heard. I knew there was going to be one or two certain things that pop up because again, just cultural osmosis. But other than that, didn't really know much about it. So kind of went in fairly blind relative to what I think a lot of people. Again, it does seem to be like almost a school thing. Like if your English class shoved it in your throat in school, then you probably had a good idea what this was. And if they didn't, then you might have avoided it up until now.
Yeah, I was discussing this with my my wife's mother, and she was like, "Oh, I've never actually read that story, and I've got an English literature major. Like, I've never read that." And I was like, "Well, technically, it's not English literature. Technically, it's ancient Roman and Greek literature, but fair enough."
Yeah, but how many people are reading it in the original language?
Oh God, nobody. I'm curious because that's the one thing that the musical Hamilton was based specifically off of like one biography of Hamilton, like one specific viewing of him and like the work through of that. I'm curious which adaptation, which version Christopher Nolan read and like based his script off of, because obviously every version has just little differences, little things that change across each one. And there's one, I believe, pretty major difference within the first act, without spoiling too much, that I was waiting for and it just never happened.
Yeah, which is the funny thing about coming into this, having never been familiar with the Odyssey before, other than just the vague notion of its existence, is that I'm probably going to talk about story points that I like and dislike, and that might sound weird to some people because you're criticizing the Odyssey. It's like the oldest like existing story of humankind, but I'm like, yeah, but
It's how it's adapted as well. That's the key here, because like that's part of the conversation I was having was the idea that a lot of times when you have a story that's this old, the sensibility and like the theming and stuff like that can seem completely ancient and foreign for a modern audience. It could just seem like what are we even discussing here? What's the point of the story? But how it's adapted into a modern age changes the theming. It changes all that, and that's worth discussing.
yeah. I did roll my eyes a little bit that there was a guy just called Mentor, and then it occurred to me the reason why we have that word is probably based on this character's name. So
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, oh wow, the mentor's name is Way.
this probably predates anyone using that word. Okay. So I don't know. It's interesting. I also am curious like how much of the original text kind of survived and how much of it's maybe been reshaped over the centuries as, like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like I have to assume there's not just the original text is lying around in good enough condition you can actually make it out.
I don't know. I mean, there's that's kind of the reason why certain stories survived from the ancient Greek era and stuff like that, is that there were copies that like managed to be transcribed and survived that length. Because, there's probably thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of stories from back then, and we have such a select few of them. So maybe this is one of the ones that had some sort of original thing, or maybe it was passed down orally for a few years until somebody managed to actually write it down. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Clearly, I'm not a historian, right? Let's get out of the way.
That's not what we're here
right
for.
now.
We're here for film theory.
Yeah, which also, actually, on that subject, because there's a bit of a debate about this movie, about using relatively modern English and it's right, and obviously no one's arguing it should not be in English in general. I think everyone agrees, yeah, it's made for a modern day English speaking audience, so it should be in English. But some people are like, oh, it's a bit too modern sounding, and I'm like, who gives a like, do you want it to be hard to understand just so it sounds old fashioned? Like, and also, as far as in this kind of connects to that, is that this is not a historical movie, right? This is a story with mythical beings and creatures in it. It's not about the real time period of which these characters are supposed to inhabit. It's okay if it doesn't actually link up with what historians actually say happened in the Bronze Age or whatever else. So it's okay, right? None of that matters.
No.
There's a Cyclops in it. None of that matters.
This goes out to all the people that like when Disney's live remake of Little Mermaid came out, and they were like, wait a minute, why is the mermaid black? That doesn't make any sense. It's like, bro, it's a mermaid. What are you talking about?
Yeah, why are you not upset about the fins and the tail?
Is that not the part that's unrealistic here?
Yeah.
I will say I actually do appreciate the fact that it is put in more of a... I don't even want to say modernized, because it's not modernized. It's just not as hoity-toity and like boisterous as the original text would be. Because I've seen adaptations from like Shakespeare and stuff where they use that kind of language, where they tone it down and they try to make it more casual, and it's so much easier to understand. It's so much easier to get the morals and the messaging and the character work. But then I've also seen there was a little bit of plays that were taking things like Star Wars and putting them in Shakespearean, like iambic pentameter, stuff like that, and they suck. They're the worst. Because even if you know the story, it's like, I can't understand a goddamn thing anyone's saying. So no, I'd much rather be able to understand it and be able to understand what the characters are doing at any point.
Yeah, it's just not something that not only do I not care about it, I think that's actually incorrect. I do care about it. I actively disagree with the complaints, because it would just be a more frustrating viewing experience that I would definitely enjoy less. So, right, with all that out of the way, then obviously, at this point, I did the Batman movies with Connor a long time ago. Maybe one day we'll circle back around and do all the Batman movies. Part 2 got delayed again to March 2028.
Oh
yeah,
God,
so
Jesus.
We got more time. If you want to do like all the Batman movies in the early 2028, we can. We got room for it.
At this point, we may as well just change the script and it's Dark Knight Returns. Like, we're at that point soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, Pattinson's going to be 40 when that comes out now, and the whole point was he was meant to be the young Batman when they cast him in the last one.
Exactly, Jesus.
Oh dear, hell, I'll be turning 38 that year. No,
Oof.
I'll be turning 39 that year. Jesus Christ. Anyway, yes, the Odyssey. Let's just get into it, I suppose. David, what did you think of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey?
I really, really liked it. I don't think I liked it as much as Oppenheimer. And it's wildly different movies, so it's hard to compare the two. But I do remember feeling like after I watched Oppenheimer, I was just in awe of like all of the visual spectacle and everything else going on there. This movie has that. This movie is very well made, very high production value. The cast is just exploding with stars across the board, and nobody is not pulling their weight.
Sometimes in fairly minor roles where they only have like 2 scenes, but no, we got an A-lister for that.
Absolutely. But I do feel like when it was all said and done, as much as I think that they did a great job of adding these sort of deeper, not even morals, but themes, ideas, having everything circle back, I was getting a lot of Inception vibes with the kind of like non-linear storytelling, but still building up to this larger theme and idea to it. But with all that said, I think it was great. It just wasn't his best. And there's nothing wrong with that. It is fantastically well done. I would definitely suggest going to see it, especially while it's in theaters, because a movie with this sort of epic scale does deserve that kind of presentation. So definitely check that out. But I would say that given the choice between this and probably like 2 or 3 of his other best movies, I would say this is top 3 at the moment, but I can't say it's number 1 by a stretch.
Yeah, obviously the visual spectacle's off the charts. It might be the highest production value movie I've ever goddamn seen in some ways, like the way it handles all of its stuff. I think it's a good movie. It might even be bordering on great, but I don't love this movie. And I think there's a clear divide for me about what I like and what I don't like as much in this movie. Everything with the Odysseus, right? Matt Damon's character, who plays Odysseus, right? Everything with him on his journey, gold. Absolute gold. Everything he encounters with his shipmates, all of that journey, fantastic, pretty much, right? Barring maybe 1 or 2 minor nitpicks. Everything with Anne Hathaway and Tom Holland, I think, is mediocre. And there was definitely a point, because this movie's 3 hours long, there was a point about 2 hours in where there's a kind of a dramatic scene between those two. And I realized that I didn't really care about either of them, and all of this stuff was just like some extra framing for the stuff that was actually entertaining. And I found myself, because of that, finding that the ending, the final kind of showdowns and conflicts and all that stuff, I found that feeling a little underwhelming, because it was kind of more paying off that side of things so much as it was the big mythical journey and encountering crazy stuff, you know, in mysterious lands and waters and all that. So so I liked it, but I don't think I'm as in love with it as I think what the average opinion is, honestly. I feel like I'm probably a little bit less than the average opinion on this one.
See, I haven't kept up on the average opinion of it, but I've been suggested some videos just because Google tracks all my things I search. And one of the things was saying like, oh, to all the Odyssey haters out there, I'm like, there are haters? I've been unaware.
I mean, YouTube just does clickbait anger stuff in every direction. I wouldn't really go by that, but like I've been listening to podcasts that aren't even movie podcasts, but people are bringing up the movie and saying they love it. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. And you said there you think it's like top 3 Nolan. I don't think it's even top 5 Nolan, or maybe even less than that. Fair. That's fair. Like I like it. I think it's very good. I think the spectacle's fantastic, and I think there are scenes in this movie that are pretty jaw-dropping. But I don't think it all emotionally necessarily came together for me. Like, I don't know if I really cared all that much about the reunions and all the other stuff, and you know, and maybe there's just something inherently in me where I don't give a shit about a prince who's meant to be taking the throne, because Dune bores the shit out of me as well. But like, it's just not something I get that excited about. And honestly, because I thought early on, again, not knowing what the story of the Odyssey was, I thought, okay, we're going to be jumping backwards and forwards. We're going to tell the story in hindsight of Odysseus. And we've got Tom Holland as the son who's kind of trying to, like, stave off what's going on at home, present day, and all that. And I thought, oh, there's going to be, like, a dueling story here where Tom Holland's going to have his own kind of, like, either thrills or adventure. Not in the same type of adventure, but certainly, I feel like he was going to do it. I feel like it was setting him up to have his own plot. And then, honestly, he goes and talks to one person, then comes home. Like, there's nothing. Like, nothing actually happens with him. And to the point where you could have probably cut out, like, almost an hour of this movie and just get rid of all the Tom Holland and Anne Hathaway stuff. Like, just have them be mentioned, but we don't have to see them until really late on.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, I do think that the original ordering of the books does have that kind of structure where it's not even as a framing device, but it does have portions where Telemachus is going off and doing his own thing and being like, hey, has anyone heard news of my dad? But yeah, I think for me, I agree with you of the reunion is not something that is intensely interesting to me. I think I probably have it more than you. What gets me more are the larger themes at play and how they all start tying together and how the pieces all come together, because that's where I was kind of getting a little bit of inception from this without saying too much about it at this point. It is something where all of the puzzle pieces are presented early on and they're brought back up throughout, and it's only once we hit the third act, once we hit the end, that everything starts clicking into place together and you finally have a full picture of, oh, not only has why this scene is going on, or even why the journey is going on, why everything going back to the Trojan War has been happening. Like, beginning to end, this entire thing has all been based around this one specific action that was taken. And I think that it's very well done in that point of view to get these larger ideas across, instead of caring about oh yeah, whether Tom Holland's going to see his dad again.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's lots of little things that are set up and paid off, right? I think there's a lot of fun mechanical things they do to wrap things up towards the end, but I don't think the emotional side of it was there for me. And I think it left me feeling kind of cold towards some of the characters. So, I think on that, because it's not like, if you compare it to Oppenheimer's, his last movie, it's not like I was necessarily that emotionally invested in the characters in that necessarily, but that was more about, I guess they're very similar movies in some ways, actually, but despite how different they are, in the sense that they're both about characters who are dealing with the weight of something they've done and the astronomical sort of cost of it, and on their on their guilt, on their psyche, and all on their soul, if you will, right? They're both kind of dealing with that. And I think in Oppenheimer, because it's actually based on a true story, where this is talking about a real thing we all understand that happened and has this weight to it and cost, and it has this, like, you know, immediately identifiable, like, sort of ripple in recent history, versus the Odyssey, where it's like, okay, we're talking about the Trojan War and we're talking about this stuff, and like, I mean, I don't even know if that was a real war. Maybe it was, but even if it was,
I think it was.
It's so long ago. It's so incomprehensible in what effect it has at all on modern civilization. That it doesn't necessarily have the same weight in that sense. Even though I do think the way it deals specifically with Odysseus's feelings towards it, I do think that stuff mostly works, actually. But but there's definitely other little things that I would critique. Like, honestly, without saying anything about the context of it or anything, I'll just say Charlize Theron's character I thought was a bit weird, and I didn't really like any of that stuff, because it just kind of felt like, I don't know, like, I almost thought it was building something else up to reveal something, and it ended up just kind of being so simple that I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's all she was, and that's kind of a little bit unsatisfying. I thought there was going to be more of a mystical element to that, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, one of those things where, yes, it's a long movie, but the books, because it's not just like one singular, like, I guess you can buy it as a novel, whatever it is, but like, it's split up in the tradition of how it was told into 24 separate books, which, you know, are all probably pretty short comparatively, but it is effectively a serialized story. So those things, those characters, yes, they pop in, they do their bit, and then they leave. And I think that having her framed the way she was makes her less of a serialized character who pops in, does her bit, or leaves, and makes her more of a framing device, which does imply that she's going to be more. It does come across that way.
Yeah. And again, so this is just, as someone who did not know where anything was really going beyond some of the broad strokes, some things just kind of fell a little bit flat. And I don't, again, I feel like it's weird to criticize this ancient story that, like, you know, because this is me criticizing the Odyssey as a story rather than what the movie does with it necessarily. But yeah, not all of it clicked. Like, I think it's very good. I don't want to sound too negative, because like there are absolutely segments and sections of this movie where it's just excellent, right? And it's like the filmmaking on show during, you know, because they're effectively long set pieces where it's like, oh, okay, this is where they arrive at this island and this section happens, and then they arrive at this place and this section happens. Although I did think it was funny, I almost started to think it was darkly funny how many times a section of this movie will end with him and all of his men running back towards their boat to try and leave in a hurry. Yeah. Over and over again. It's like over and over again they keep doing that.
I love that part, just from the concept of like how, because if I do have to say one thing about it, it is that the idea that they are desperate is relayed to us in terms of like how they speak and like they say what's going on. But I will say that for a lot of the actual Odyssey itself, a lot of the trip, it was kind of difficult to feel how desperate things are or how long it's really been. And I think that is to some extent intentional, to like keep up this idea of like, oh, it is all mythology, it is all this idea of like it's a story being told sort of thing. But yeah, I kind of wish that I did get a little bit more of this idea of how desperate they are and like how long they've been wandering for, in order to inform whenever they make a stupid ass decision that then they have to go running from in the middle of everything.
Yeah. So yeah, we got a big cast, as we kind of alluded to. Matt Damon being Odysseus, Tom Holland playing his son, Telemachus, if I'm pronouncing that remotely correct. Anne Hathaway as the wife Penelope. Do you feel in the passage of time like me, where now Anne Hathaway's playing Tom Holland's mother? Does that feel like, whoa, when did that happen? What?
Her playing opposite of Matt Damon, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But then as soon as it was like, oh no, Tom Holland's the son, everything's wrong. I don't like how age has happened.
Well, because it makes me feel, because I remember. Anne Hathaway when she was like new and like the young, you know, star who. So that's very strange. But yeah, so we got Robert Pattinson as one of the suitors for Anne Hathaway, which, yeah. He's he plays a bit of a shitbag. He's decent enough in that role.
Thing. The whole concept in the beginning is that all the suitors have been there forever, just trying to win the hand of Penelope, and they're all dicks. Every last one of them are just the worst.
Yeah, which honestly just murkies up the age thing a little bit more, actually, when you think about it, because he's a bit younger than Anne Hathaway, and then he's Batman, and then Tom Holland's Spider-Man, so there's almost like a weird stepping stone where if Robert Pattinson tried to date someone Tom Holland's age, I don't think any of us would bat an eyelid. Yeah. But he's also a bit older, so him trying to date Anne Hathaway is also not that weird either. He's going after
the previous Batman's Catwoman. It's so confusing.
Yeah, I don't know. None of this matters. It was just a thought I had in my head that made me feel old more than anything.
I mean, the Tom Holland thing especially, but like back then, obviously, there's the idea of like, look, age doesn't matter when it comes down to, am I going to rule a kingdom?
Oh, of course, yeah. So, yeah, and elsewhere, of course, we have John Leguizamo is in here playing kind of the blind, wise man. Yeah,
he's a cattle farmer, I believe.
Amongst others, he's also kind of like the most loyal servant / maybe head of security for the palace.
He's a chill dude. That's all you gotta know.
Yeah. Elliot Page is in here as Sinon, if that's the right pronunciation.
I think it was Sinon in the movie. I don't know how it is normally.
John Bernthal's in here. He's not even in this first 20 names, so I have no idea what his character was called.
I'm sorry, who was it?
John Bernthal. He's Anna Magnon's brother.
Oh God, Menelaus. It doesn't sound familiar.
He's John Bernthal. He's here.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Oh, actually, this was the other thing. Actually, just talking about this cast, because Zendaya's also got a small role in this movie, right? Mm-hmm. And I was watching the trailers before the movie started, and I get a trailer for Spider-Man, right, which obviously has both Tom Holland and Zendaya in it.
Yep.
Right.
And John Bernthal.
Right. I got a trailer for Dune Part 3, which has Robert Pattinson and Zendaya in it. And then I remembered that Robert Pattinson and Zendaya were also in that movie together earlier this year, right? And I was like, it's starting to feel like the same 3 or 4 actors are in almost every movie that's coming out.
I don't feel like, as a culture, we're back in that 80s to 90s phase of like top A-list celebrities being dominated, yes. But it still feels like we're moving back towards that.
I don't know if they've got the same star power as they did back then, though. I don't think they actually get the butts in the seats the way that the stars of the 80s did, but it just feels like the same...
But I'm saying it feels like we're moving in that direction, though. It feels like we might be at the point where it's like, and Zendaya. It's like, oh, all right, cool, let's do it.
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't know if it's going to ever have the same effect. I'm saying that we're rotating the same small group of people, it seems like, all in the same kind of age bracket, but that's it. Like, it's just like, oh my god, like I got 2 Zendaya trailers, then she's in the movie. I got, a Robert Pattinson trailer, he's in the movie. I got a Tom Holland trailer, he's in the movie. So I don't know, it's just funny to me. Anyway, aside from them, we mentioned Charlize Theron's in there. I want to say, I've not actually looked it up. I want to say there was a character who was heavily in makeup and had like a mask on. I won't spoil the context of the scene, but I'm pretty sure it was James Remar, just from the voice. I thought I could hear his voice. Yeah,
it was James Remar. Yeah, because I remember as I was looking up the cast, I was like, oh, hey, James Remar's in this. And then once I was done with the movie, I completely forgot James Remar was in the movie. And then after the fact, I'm like, oh yeah, hey, there he is.
He's got a very distinct voice, because like the guy started speaking and I'm like, oh, I know that voice, who is this? And then a couple of lines later I'm like, I think that's James Remar. I think James Remar getting a Nolan movie, good for him.
Yeah,
good for him.
Absolutely. Put that on his... Well, no, he was in Oppenheimer. He was the president that like...
Oh, sorry. No, he wasn't the president. He was the guy picking the location to drop the bomb.
Or whatever. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. Oh, he's been in 2 Nolan movies. Hey, twice as good on the resume.
Remar. Let's do it.
Oh dear. So yeah, big cat, and then there's obviously some other people that pop up in small roles. Is it Hamish Patel? He's like the second in command on Odysseus' crew. So you may have recognized him from a couple things.
Lupita Nyong'o,
of course, yeah,
and a few things there.
Yeah. So yeah, big cast, and a lot of people just happy to pop in and do a role for Nolan. It seems. Also, actually, Logan Marshall Green's in this.
Oh,
in a small role. He's kind of just working for Robert Pattinson, or he's like friends with Robert Pattinson in this. Yeah, and he, Invitation was a movie he was in that I loved. He's also in Upgrade, and he was in Prometheus, which, less notable, but he's in stuff. He's good. Some people sometimes accuse him of being not Tom Hardy because he's got a bit of a Tom Hardy look to him, but but he is very good in his own right. Yeah. So I was happy to see him pop up. So
absolutely,
big cast. So, and as far as anything else goes, before we get into sort of the meteor spoiler stuff, music's good. I will say, like, it feels a bit lame to just say I miss Hans Zimmer doing Nolan movies, but I feel like the one thing that's not stuck out to me as much in the last couple of Nolan films is that I've not really found myself remembering the scores all that much. Now, it's not to say that it doesn't fit the movie. It's not like there's not a couple of good moments where I felt like a nice sound coming in that really helped the mood of the scene or whatever. But there was definitely nothing where I'm like, oh, I want to listen to this later. And you can debate if that's maybe something you need for a movie score, but it's certainly something I like from a movie score. And I didn't really get any of that here. And I felt the same way about Oppenheimer. I felt the same way about Tenet. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it especially for Nolan at a certain point, it felt like a must-have. Like it felt like something that was so attached to it. But yeah, it has gone by the wayside. It's not something that's there anymore. I will say that the score in this was also a lot more of the era. Like you heard like the lutes and the banging drums and whatever else like that. It felt a bit more of the era, which works for the movie, but it is something that's highly limiting in terms of what all you can actually do with the score.
Yeah. Although that did make it really strange when Smash Mouth started playing towards the end, but that's
I tend to, as soon as the credits start, I tend to just assume that's for the CD, No,
it's the big moment where Odysseus makes his big grand reveal, and it's like, somebody once told me.
He kicks in the door. It's a shot-for-shot remake of the opening of Shrek, which is really weird.
Oh, dear.
Also, one other actor I wanted to bring up, just because I was surprised. Mia Goth.
Oh, yeah, she's got a tiny role in this as well.
Yep. I was like, wait a minute, you don't have any eyebrows. That's Mia Goth.
That's her defining feature, is it?
For me, it is. It's so because I don't sit down to watch her horror movies. I am far too much of a baby to handle that. But my wife has, and I've just been in the background passively observing them, and I don't know how she got this role. I'll say that much, because she is absolutely far more deserving of she's going to kill everybody. She should be like Cersei or someone like that.
Honestly, I thought she might start killing everyone. She had enough, screen presence to make me believe it. But yeah, it's just strange. I guess I think it's just as simple as, hey, there's a small role here. Christopher Nolan says, "Do you want it?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'll do a small Nolan role, even though I'm the lead in other movies."
Anybody would. Who's going to turn that down?
So I think that's just a testament to the cred that Nolan's built up now. But obviously there's a lot of actors here he's worked with before. He's worked with Damon before, obviously in Interstellar. Same with Anne Hathaway. She was also in Dark Knight Rises. Pattinson was in Tenet. So there's a lot of returning. Elliot Page, of course, was in Inception. So there's a lot of returning actors here from his past movies as well. So he does like to bring people back. So, yeah. Anyway, all right, let's just say spoilers. That's so we could talk about things properly, shall we? Cool. I don't think this is necessarily one that we're going to go in order, because one, the story's kind of out of order in and of itself. It's probably just easier to focus on all of the Odysseus story anyway.
I mean, we could get the framing device of what's going on with Tom Holland and Anne Hathaway, but for the most part, it's just, what's Odysseus been up to?
Yeah. I mean, like Robert Pattinson and 50 other men all really, really want Anne Hathaway, and they're all just hanging around, and apparently it's accepted that they're going to hang around and eat all the food in the palace.
Yeah, that's one very recurring thing throughout the movie is Zeus's law, which is just the golden rule. It's just treat others as you want to be treated. But with the exclusive thing with Zeus's laws, they're basically saying, if someone shows up at your doorstep, you treat them like a guest. Like, you do whatever you got to do. And all of these suitors have shown up and have just repeatedly been like, hey, I'm here for the hand of the maiden in charge. But they use that as a smokescreen to just show up, eat all the food, and party all night.
Yeah, and then the other part of that rule, though, they bring up a number of times, is that the reason why that rule exists is because there's always a chance that a beggar who shows up could be a god in disguise who's there to test you. So that's something that is a recurring motif.
Which, to be fair, based off of what I know of Greek mythology, happens a lot. It is absolutely something they should have been afraid of.
It's that, what was that show? I never watched it, but there was that TV show where like the owner of a company would like go undercover as one of the employees at his own business. I
think it's just Undercover Boss, yeah.
Yeah. That's basically what this is. It just would be like, oh, I'm sneaky, I'm gonna put on a little hood and be like, aha.
Here's the thing. You're right if you picked anyone but Zeus. Because anyone but Zeus would be like, oh, I'm here to test you and see your metal, whatever. Zeus is there to have sex. That's all Zeus does.
Forgive me for not picking a god that fits your taste.
Hey, look, there's one thing I know about Greek mythology. It's that Zeus just bangs anything that moves, usually as a swan or a goose.
Honestly, it's impressive to me that the only reason why I was recognizing a lot of the names in this movie is because I read Wonder Woman. Like, I was like, oh yeah.
I was going to say. I was like,
yeah, Circe, Zeus, Poseidon, yeah, I know all these names.
Yeah, no, I totally took my history and English classes. Don't question my merits.
It wouldn't be history. It would be, I don't know, specifically mythology type class. I mean, you don't get that in school, admittedly. That's more of a college thing, but...
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on, like, how deep into the ancient Greek history you go, because I'm sure they would mention, like, the gods and stuff in a history class.
I mean, you'd mention it in the context of what people back then believed, I suppose, but I don't know how much of, like, actually learning about the mythology itself would play a role.
Again, I think it depends on the curriculum. Beats me.
Anyway, yeah, so that's the setup, and this is actually one of the reasons why I think these characters are not all that interesting, that being Tom Holland and Anne Hathaway's characters, especially Tom Holland, is that literally all he is like, oh, I never met my daddy because he left when I was like a toddler, and I can't wait till he comes back. And then people say to him, he's never coming back, he's gone. He's like,
yeah,
no, don't say that.
yeah. I mean, it is a bit whiny. Just to give a bit more context on it, Matt Damon, Odysseus, was pulled away for the Trojan War. That took like 10 years because Troy was so well guarded and everything else like that. And then everyone started going home after the Troy fell, which we get to. But then Odysseus and his crew just never showed back up. And everyone just kind of believes like, oh yeah, the sea ate him, or he got lost, or he's imprisoned or whatever. But he's definitely not coming back home, except for Anne Hathaway and Tom Holland, who both firmly hold the faith of like, no, he's coming home, and we're not going to sell out Ithaca for some random suitor. Yeah,
because Odysseus is the king of Ithaca, but obviously he's been gone for 20 years, so everyone's getting a little bit, itchy and been like, hey, I want to be the new king, let me marry the queen. And
yeah. And the other part of it is that there's rumors that are going around, this idea that there are people that come from the sea and they just do not care about Zeus's law. They break everything they touch. They ruin cities. They are the worst type of people. And we need a king of Ithaca in order to defend against them.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, it does a lot of flashback kind of structure stuff. And it also does this thing where sometimes the flashbacks will be triggered by whatever Tom Holland's doing, where he's talking to whatever character but his dad. Sometimes it's triggered more by Matt Damon's Odysseus, because we eventually do kind of see where he seemingly is in present day, which is on some island with Charlize Theron. Yes. Which, honestly, that was the thing that got me, is that I felt like, oh, she's acting suspicious, there's something to this. I thought, oh, this is like him. Like, I thought she was a mythical being, whether she was a god or maybe another type of witch or something like that. I thought she was something that was keeping him trapped until he learned a lesson or something. I thought it was going to be like a moral lesson he had to learn before he could leave this island that he's kind of trapped on as some kind of purgatory. And maybe thematically that's kind of the thing, but in like terms of actuality, eventually it just turns out, oh no, she's just been not letting him get his memory back by feeding him these flowers so that he can keep banging her instead of going home.
Yeah, she's just keeping him high and drugged up until he's like, oh no, we're happy here, don't worry about it. I will say she is technically mythical in that she is a nymph, but it makes no difference in the movie whatsoever.
I don't think they really addressed that in the movie though, right?
No. The only thing that comes out of it is that pretty much everywhere that he goes on his journey he comes across people who are mythical / related to the gods in some way. Like, he doesn't really meet up with just normal humans at any point.
No, not after the war. Yeah, it tends to be other things that they encounter. Which, and that the war is the best part to start with, I guess, because obviously we get it in different, you know, we get different parts of it at different times, but the main bulk of it really is when Tom Holland goes to John Bernthal, and Bernthal's like, yeah, I fought with your father in the Trojan War, and we get the actual story of the horse and what that plan was, and it was Odysseus' idea for all these guys to hide inside this horse, which they presented as a gift. And, you know, this horse was taken into the city of Troy. It was propped up. And it was pretty gnarly. People were, like, drowning in the bottom of the horse because it was left on the beach and the water was coming in and all that.
Now, quick question. The Trojan horse, did you recognize it at the beginning? Like, when John Bernthal is going through the whole thing? Or, like, at the end when Matt Damon's part of it, like, fully explains the whole situation?
No, it was the first time. It was when Bernthal was going through. It was as soon as he alluded to, or like they showed that there was people hiding inside it, I was like, oh, a horse that's, you know, going to be put in
That's
and
fair.
be the catalyst for winning. It's a trick. I was like, oh, that's the Trojan horse. Like, because they hadn't said.
Yeah.
I don't think at that point in the movie had said the word Trojan yet. So it's not like it was like, because if they'd said Trojan, I like the only thing I think of when I hear Trojan is either a horse or something else I don't think the movie would be referring to.
No, that's fair. They definitely at some point said Troy, which
Yes.
I feel like you could make a connection with, but fair enough.
Yeah. Well, I even know I didn't do it with Troy, if I'm honest. I don't really know much about the whole Troy
Fair
thing. I never saw Troy, the Brad Pitt movie, so I didn't learn anything from that one.
I mean, neither have I. I just know that Troy is the place that Trojan is named after. Like,
I see. No. It's just one of those things I just know from, I don't know, osmosis, pop culture. I've heard the phrase. I'm sure I had the expression explained to me at some point in school, but I never studied the Odyssey or anything that this is tied to. But yeah, it was like a light bulb moment of like, oh, I think that is the Trojan horse, not a Trojan horse. It's the Trojan horse. That's why we have that phrase. So.
Right.
It's like, okay, this is interesting. Like, and as much as I knew, you know, when someone talks about what a Trojan horse is, I know what that means. I've always known, well, not to say always, ever since I was a kid, I've known what that means. I don't know if I knew it was because people were literally hiding inside the horse. That detail was definitely new to me, but you know, but it was brutal. You know, them inside there struggling to breathe, people in the bottom drowning, all that stuff, and like kind of the like them trying to stay quiet as they're being dragged towards Troy, and then of course there's one point where one of the guards actually has the idea, oh, just in case someone's hiding in there, I'm just going to stab the sword into it a couple times, and like it actually catches one of them on the shoulder or whatever, and they have to like hold his mouth so he wouldn't make a noise, and then one guy quickly comes in and just sort of wipes the blood off the blade as it's going up so that the guard won't see it. I thought that was a really nice little touch.
I missed the wiping part of that. Like, because I saw that he pulled the sword out and looked at it. I'm like, he's going to see the blood. But I guess I just missed the wiping action.
Yeah, a guy just sort of jumps in with his two hands like that and just sort of wipes it with his hands. Now, admittedly, how effective that would be is up for debate, but at least they do address it. It's like, I was like, oh, that's quick thinking. Yeah, because he'd see the blood and that would be a problem.
I mean, I'd also be just thinking from the side of like, that's weird. My sword just got tugged a little bit inside of this horse. Maybe there's something inside of it that's worth paying attention to.
Well, it was a very gentle kind of like, you know.
Yeah, it was a caress.
It was a caress. Or it was maybe as he was pulling it up, so that was the motion. He didn't have to like tug on it. It was just a smooth little thing. But
Yeah, I do want to just mention, because you just kind of glossed over it there, the drowning aspect of it.
Yes.
I mean, the movie glosses over it as well, but yeah, it's just brutal the way that they show it, because it's like the mission, having this work, is more important than any singular soldier's life. And like, as much as they're trying to make sure all these people are able to like survive and do whatever, this is before the Trojans even show up. This is while it's just buried in the surf. And they're unable to leave because they don't know when the Trojans are going to arrive.
Yeah, it's that extends to even outside the horse, because that's where Elliot Page's character is kind of has been left behind to basically say, hey, this is a gift, but gets shot with arrows and is killed because the shot on sight is able to get the words out saying this is a gift pretty much, and that's kind of it. Yeah. And that's actually a scene that we get. That part of it is like right at the start of the movie. That's like one of the first scenes we get is that little bit on its own.
I was talking with my father-in-law about the movie, and I was like, I can't remember how, but Elliot Page came up, and he was like, oh, is he in a lot of the movie? I'm like, well, technically, yes, but I wouldn't get too used to the character.
Nah, just a couple of important scenes, but yeah, not a lot of screen time per se. It's no, I think it's an interesting thing because obviously a big thing about the whole character of Odysseus and his guilt over everything is effectively this was his idea to do the horse, but it is inherently a betrayal of Zeus's law because it's trickery, because it's sneaking in. And the fact that we start the movie with this particular part, and when we do get to see this character again, and we'll get to this properly because this is a big thing to talk about, but we kind of go to hell and talk to the dead at one point, so we have a chat with Elliot Page's character.
Look, if you're telling an ancient Greek story, I just assume at some point you end up in hell. That seems to be a recurring motif anytime I see an ancient Greek story.
But that part of it of like, oh, you had me volunteer for this mission, but you knew I was going to die. And Matt Damon's like, no, but you had to believe it. Like it was that was to make the trick convincing. You had to truly believe this. Yeah.
To be clear, he volunteered of his own volition. To which Matt Damon came up and like, why did you volunteer for that? And he's like, it's because like I believe in it. Like everything's like I want to do right by you. And
but did not know it was a trick. Did not know the whole Trojan horse thing was a Trojan horse.
Yeah. And so when we get to the conversation later on, he's just like, you were right there. Like, I was sitting there for days, and you were right there the whole time. And he's like, yeah, sorry.
Well, that was what's so effective about when we get, like, John Bernthal telling the story, is we see inside the horse, obviously, and we can hear that happening in that earlier opening scene. It's not literally the opening scene, but it's this the first part of all that we see at the start of the movie, is that kill. And we can sort of see inside the horse as it's happening, and they can hear parts of it. They can hear the words being uttered, and the arrow sort of impact being felt, like so it does a neat thing of like matching those things up, but it's this idea of like, oh, this was the first part of the sacrifice, was this character, and then obviously once they get to, because effectively all the actual like the taking of Troy stuff is split into three. It's that one scene at the start, it's Bernthal telling the story of the hiding in the horse, and that goes on for quite a bit, where it's like them sneaking out of the horse and, you know, going around and killing some guards and basically holding off the guys enough that they can open the gates to let in the army that is assembled at the door to come in. And there's that great shot of Agamemnon standing in his black armor with his big imposing helmet, and the army just cut around him.
He's just standing there aura farming for like an hour. Just as soon as they open these doors, it's going to be so badass.
So that's the second part. And then the third part, which again is shorter again, is kind of actually seeing some of the actual killing of the city, where like Matt Damon's actually looking around at the army that he's with, killing civilians. Very end, but that's where it's like, oh no, he's been feeling guilty about this ever since he did this.
No, and that's definitely something I want to get back to when we hit the end, because it's kind of like there's that, again, I don't want to spoil too much of it, but spoilers a little bit for Inception. When you hit the end of the third act, it's where all the different lines converge, and you understand these things that you've been seeing are not presented in the way that you thought you were seeing them. And it's the same thing is happening here. It's all the different plot threads coming together and saying, you thought you knew like all the different pieces, but it turns out it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah, I mean, this side of the movie is the part that I really like, right? Like, I mean, it's the Trojan stuff, and then the actual like Odyssey itself, which is the journey home, right? All of that is great, and it's beautiful.
I was gonna say, in between all John Bernthal stuff, like he tells a story and it's one solid chunk, but on the other sides of it, you get the stuff of like, oh, here's Helen of Troy, and now she's scarred, and you get like Telemachus, and he's like crying after hearing like the true story of what happened to his dad from someone who was there, rather than these songs that are sung about him. And all that stuff is good. I think that they do a good job of it, but it is absolutely the less interesting part of it. Yeah,
well, because I think my assumption early on, again, not really knowing the story all that well, is that he was being, like, Tom Holland's character was being set up to do something more important before his dad gets back. Like, there's, you know, he's going to have his own kind of thing that makes us root for him because he's, you know, he's doing the right thing. But, like, ultimately, all he does is, like, get sad that his dad's not around and worry about his mother having to remarry. And, like, there's never very, like, he's proactive in the sense that he goes out to try and find out what happened to his father, but he never really achieves very much in the grand scheme of things on his own.
It feels like the story's telling us he's going out to do something, but what is actually happening is he's going out to find more framing devices so that we can hear more about Odysseus.
Yes, precisely. So, yeah, and all this stuff with the horse and then sneaking around the city in stealth mode, as it were, all of that looks great. It's very well paced. Yeah. It's tense. It's, you know, it's all about just building up to get those doors open. But then once the doors do open, it's like, well, that's it. Like, they're about to win. And then the brutality of that comes later, of course, when we see, like, the rest of it from...
when we hit back at the end.
So, good stuff. Yep.
So, I mean, honest to God, once the Bernthal stuff is done, Telemachus' entire part is basically just, who cares for the longest time? Like, it pops in every once in a while, but for the most part, all that we get is one point where, I think it's... God, I can never remember his name. Antinous, whatever his name is. Robert Pattinson. He basically hears that Telemachus has left the city. He's off doing whatever, and he makes the plan of like, oh, well, he's the heir to the throne. If things don't shake out my way, I'ma just have him killed. And so that's set up for like pretty much the end of the movie at that point.
I mean, that was the thing early on. As soon as Telemachus wanted to leave, Anne Hathaway's like, hey, you're only kind of not been killed so far because you're here and you're kind of protected. Like, they're trying to provoke you into fighting them so they've got a just reason to kill you, but you're not giving in so far, and that's good. But as soon as you leave the perimeter of this palace, they're going to just see you as vulnerable and try and kill you, and that does happen a bit later in the movie. So they do set that up.
He only leaves once John Leguizamo gets the shit kicked out of him, and he's like, all right, well, this has gone long enough. I gotta go check this out and make something happen here.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, the thing is that, yeah, like, ultimately we cut back to him, like, having some archery fun with Jon Bernthal at one point. There's a little bit extra conversation there. Like, honestly, Jon Bernthal felt like he was going to be not a antagonist per se, but, you know, his attitude when Telemachus first shows up is a little bit kind of, like, I don't know, like, just a little bit antagonistic, I suppose. Yeah, well, right?
It's especially led on because Mentor at that point is coming in saying like, hey, don't let anybody know who you are. Like, this is dangerous for you to be out here. So you're just from the language of filmmaking, you're assuming that, yes, his identity is going to get out. And specifically, the guy in charge, who already seems to be a little off his rocker, is going to be the problem. But he turns out that he likes Telemachus. He's cool.
Even the way that he shows off Helena Troy's face and the way he sort of cracks a joke about it feels kind of cruel. It feels kind of mean. But yeah, then we see them having archery together, and it feels like, oh no, they've kind of bonded, and he's like a fun uncle now. And I'm like, okay, all right, I guess that happened.
Which, I mean, makes sense once we see everything that happened. Like, yeah, he respects Odysseus, and he's like, nah, you're cool if you're Odysseus' kid. No problems. You're safe here.
Yeah. But that's not about the interesting stuff. Let's talk about, you know, because the framing device for Odysseus, like, telling his story is basically just, like, him trying to remember when he's talking to Charlize Theron. That's it. Like, honestly, the framing device to that side of stuff isn't that important or interesting. It's really just the story itself that's the interesting part, because it's like, okay, this war took 10 goddamn years, we all want to go home, and there is kind of this, like, and this is something that maybe could have been fleshed out a little bit actually, is this idea of Animegon being the one who, like, he's very intimidating, and it feels like Odysseus, like, yes, he stays in line, he bows for him, all that stuff, and obviously he's the one, he's fighting on behalf of him, but it does kind of feel like, oh, I am so glad to not be working for that prick anymore, let's go home.
Yeah. Well, that's, in terms of fleshing out, the one thing that I really wish that they would have gotten into is they have like maybe 3 lines that describe the whole situation of like, Helen of Troy was abducted and we're going to get her and get her back and all this stuff. I don't feel like I ever fully understand the motivations. And maybe that's intentional. Maybe it's the idea of like, after, you're coming into this 10 years later, the motivations don't matter anymore. It's just a matter of like the war is happening and that's all you need to know. But what I really do love how they did this was Agamemnon is always shot from behind, and he has like a specific, like, I don't know what you would call it, that mohawk that's on like the Roman helmets and Greek helmets and stuff.
I'm pretty sure they didn't call it a mohawk, but yes.
I know, but I don't know what it's called. He's got a very specific braiding to his, and we just follow behind him, and you never really get to see his face. He's played by Benny, is it Safdie? He is so menacing when you never get to see his face. Even in the moments where he is like greeting Odysseus and saying like, you did good, like not saying it because you never hear him either, but he's like giving him a hug and patting him on the shoulder and it's just like, all right, we're going home. He still feels like he could break your spine at any moment he chooses. He's just got that sort of menace to him.
Benny Safdie, huh?
I'm sorry, what is it?
No. You didn't mispronounce it. No, I'm not. But I'm saying one of the co-directors of Uncut Gems played him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Remember, he was also in Oppenheimer. He was what's his name? I can't remember the.
No, I remember.
Name,
like I know he does small roles, but I'm just this is a bit more of a imposing, like, physical presence, which is not something I associate. I mean, I guess you put that helmet and the armor on the guy and then all of a sudden it doesn't matter who he is anymore, but just,
dude, it could literally be Mr. Rogers in there, and like you put that armor on him and it's going to be imposing. Like it works regardless of who's in there.
Yeah, just interesting is all. That's all I'm getting at. And they kind of tease a little bit as to like what happened to him when he came home when Bernthal's telling his story, but that comes up a little bit more prominently later. Yeah,
we can bring it up then. Is it actually? I mean, it is when Bernthal's telling the story, but it is effectively in sync with everything else, isn't it?
No. We don't find out actually what happened to him until the hell stuff, because that's when Matt Damon finds out. Oh,
that's right, because Agamemnon's there. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Because he shouldn't be dead technically, but he's in hell, and he's like, hey, why are you in hell? Well, funny story, Odysseus.
He's like, Odysseus is like, you didn't make it back home, did you? And then Agamemnon's like, no, I made it home. Yeah. I made it home all right.
Unfortunately, my wife wasn't very happy about the fact that I sacrificed our child to try and win the war.
We got those really good trade wins, though. It was worth it.
And just to be clear here, when I say sacrifice a child, I don't mean like their child was grown up and he was a soldier in the war and died and she saw that as a sacrifice. Right. No. He made a sacrifice of their literal child to the gods in the hopes of divine blessing or whatever.
Walking right over to the edge of a cliff saying, hey, Poseidon, catch, and yeeted that kid off.
It's important, wife. Don't worry about it. I need to win this war.
For my brother's wife, your sister. I mean, if we're just going to get into the Odysseus stuff, just to finally cap that, he basically looks at Agamemnon and all the ships are going off on the same route, and Odysseus tells his crew, like, guys, look, just screw that. I don't want to follow Agamemnon anymore. Let's take a different path home. Let's just explore the sea a little bit. We'll be fine. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, but I mean, to actually talk about that seriously in terms of like what that choice represents, it kind of feels like Agamemnon kind of represents his guilt and shame, and he doesn't want to be with him anymore. He wants to kind of pivot, so that's why he doesn't want to just go with the rest of them. But that decision is what sends them on this trip. So it's literally a choice that's made out of shame that sends them on the guilt trip.
It feels like it's absolutely avoiding the problem. Yeah. Like if Agamemnon is like, oh, you're going to sail in with everyone else who was there who did these brutal things, then you're going to represent facing your shame and all that. And he's just not ready to do that at this point.
Yeah, and the first place they come to is not one of the mystical places. It's just like a regular island with people on it. But it does kind of notably set up something where it just cuts to them already having burned the village and people are crying and upset. And like, I think it's like the second in command who...
To be fair, the villagers burned the village. They didn't burn the village. The villagers did.
Yeah, but like, it's very much this kind of like, oh, why didn't you accept us, right? Why did you react this way? And they say it's because we thought you were the people from the sea, right? Which is it's a very vague title because like technically they are people from the sea. They came on a boat, but yeah.
We're talking about the bad people from the sea. It's like, no, we're from Ithaca. We're the chill people from the sea. You're talking about the bad people from the sea.
Spoilers, they are the people from the sea.
God damn it, Pete, it was gonna be a whole thing.
We were the people from the sea all along.
Yeah. Well, when you say it like that, it sounds stupid.
But yeah, it's this idea of like, this is the warning where they could turn around here if they really, really, wanted to. But it kind of represents that later realization, which is why I'm bringing it up, is that, oh, this idea of the people from the sea, that basically started because of what happened at Troy. This idea that once Justice's Law was given up, this fear of people just coming in and like pillaging and taking and overthrowing stuff became this new fear. The Ithacans and whoever else were the people from the sea, but they kind of almost created this mystique of the boogeyman that would come in from the water and take stuff.
And I just, look, if we're on this now, I just want to harp on this for a minute because I love that. Like, I love this larger idea, and this is the kind of the modernizing theme that I feel like it does a great job with, where I look at the Odyssey and I see it as this collection of stories and whatnot, but it doesn't feel like there's this overarching narrative in terms of like, oh, but actually I was the bad man all along. No, it feels like a guy who's just overcoming odds and is surviving all this crazy shit. Like, that's what I get from the original text. What I like about this reveal here is the fact of it's just basically pointing to us as the world nowadays and is saying cruelty begets more cruelty. Like, you have to accept the idea that like this beginning of allowing these bad things to happen for whatever justification you have is only going to forward that down the line. And I really like how they tie it all together here in the end of setting up this boogeyman, like you say at the beginning, of the people from the sea, and everyone's heard of them, but no one knows who they are. And then when finally it all comes to a head, it's when Matt Damon's talking to Anne Hathaway. He's like, yeah, we were the people from the sea. That's who we were. Like, we're the people who broke Zeus's law. We put the Trojan horse in there. And it's not viewed as, hooray, we finally won the war. It's viewed as we defiled the thing that the gods said not to do. Like, that is the one thing we shouldn't have done, but we did it out of desperation and what we thought was justification.
Yeah, it's just this idea of like crossing the line, right? This idea that like, I think that's the word that I would use actually, is justification of like, oh, we get to this point where we try and justify it, but you've sort of like given up on everything you believed in, everything you were. So every time this idea of Zeus's Law comes up again, and it's something that's recurring in all this Odysseus stuff, where like multiple times it's like, do we try and obey all the laws we once had? We try and say, hey, we mean no harm, we're not here to bother you, and it always kind of blows up in their face. But it's kind of this reoccurring thing of, no, you keep trying to pretend this is still a thing, but every single thing you encounter in every island you arrive at is blowing up in your face. Or in some cases, like, and I think it's notable the order of them to an extent, where, so after these humans, right, they're traveling, they're getting lost, food's running out, and they finally find an island, right, and this is the one with the giant on, or the Cyclops.
I just want to say those three lines you said there. They're traveling, food's getting low, they're lost. Repeat that in between of everything.
Yeah, but they get to this island, right, and they're like, okay, they're looking around, they see one sheep, and it's like, well, don't kill the one sheep, because sheep are in herd, let's follow the sheep to the rest of the sheep, and then we can have lots of sheep. And they're following, and they go into a cave. And it turns out, though, this is the herd that belongs to a Cyclops, and the Cyclops comes in, and it's, the way this is shot is very horror movie-esque, which is why everyone's talking about Nolan doing a horror movie now. Everyone wants it to happen. And, the Cyclops has a big rock that blocks the entrance to the cave, so they're all trapped in there. And it feels like, oh shit, they're all in trouble now, because this Cyclops at just any point just picks up one of them and chomps for a snack and goes to sleep. And it's like, well, we're just trapped in here until he decides to eat us. We have to try and get out. And this is an extended sequence that lasts a couple of days in movie time of them trying to figure out, how do we get around them? How do we get out? Can some of us sneak out and go and get some supplies or whatever it may be?
This giant stone is far too big for them to move. They can't kill the Cyclops while the stone is up, because otherwise they'll be trapped in here.
Because they almost do. And then Matt Damon's like, hey, actually, if we kill him, we can't move that. We can't unlock the door. It's almost the Superman key for the Fortress of Solitude. No one else can pick this thing up. We need him to open that first. Otherwise, we cannot get out.
Yeah, but every single time that it's like, the Cyclops is viewed as like right on the border of intelligent. Like, it doesn't like try to like make conversation or do anything with them. It does seem very animalistic, but it can tend to a flock of sheep, and it also has like cheese making abilities and stuff like that.
Yeah, because they find the cheese first and like, oh, this is pretty good cheese. Maybe we can trade. And again, that's the idea of we're trying to do things the right way. We're going to say, hey, you're the owner of this place. We would like to trade for some of your sheep, some of your cheese, blah, blah, all that stuff. But, and this is the interesting thing about this sequence, is that that's kind of addressed this idea of the Cyclops being intelligent, because once it's injured later, it sort of it mumbles some words to itself. And they're like, wait, it can talk. Why didn't it talk before? And Odysseus is like, well, do you talk to an ant? Because that's kind of what we are to it. Yeah. We are tiny creatures. But they're
like, should we reason with it? And he's like, we just really messed it up. I'm not sure now's the good time for that.
Yeah, it's not going to happen now, because by this point they've stabbed it in the eye, right? It's like, oh, well, we'll blind it when stabbing its eye. And I think what's so interesting about this segment is it starts off being very scary because the Cyclops is big, it's imposing, and the design of the Cyclops is very intimidating because it's kind of like parts of the face are like turned sideways, like the nose is kind of sideways, the one eye's kind of sideways, and all that stuff's cool. But by the end of the sequence, it's hard not to feel like the Cyclops is the victim here, because they're the ones who have come in out of nowhere, they've invaded his living space, they have stabbed it in the eye while it's asleep, and then ultimately, you know, when they're all running away at the end, this thing is like, yeah, it's chasing them down and wants to get at them, but at this point, it's almost like you feel sorry for the Cyclops.
Well, yeah, to be clear, they managed to sneak out by putting like straw on their back and pretending they're sheep, which is part of the original story. And then, as they are out, they are gone. The Cyclops is none the wiser that they've managed to escape. It's just standing there. That Damon's like, one more arrow, just because it's a dick. And then it chases after them because he's like, you know, pain again. It's for no reason. And to which point, the first mate is later on asked, like, why'd you have to do that, man? It's like, he ate a bunch of our men. Screw him.
Yeah, it was revenge. He did something out of revenge to hurt the Cyclops one last time, and it got at least a couple more of them killed, I think, in the ensuing chase. And this is the first of many times where we're running back to the boats and trying to get away, because there's 3 boats at this point. I want to mention that. There's like 3 boats that they're all on, because later on that will go down to just one boat, so that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yep. They got a nice little fleet here. They have the ability for like rowboats to allow the bigger boats to stay out in the water and then to come in to the shore, and one by one, each of these things is lost.
Absolutely. So I think the Cyclops section, obviously, it's very good visually. It's very tense. It's very spooky because there is this mythical quality to it, which is really cool. But as you're going through it, I think your sympathy kind of shifts a little bit as to who you sympathize with. And ultimately, like, this Cyclops wasn't necessarily doing anything out of malice. And then all of a sudden is almost being picked on by these little shits who talk about honor, talk about, oh, we're doing this to honor our dead and all the rest of it because, you know, it killed a couple of us, so we'll get revenge, you know, we'll honor them by escaping, yada yada, like all these grand speeches that Matt Damon makes. But ultimately, the end result is, no, they came in from the sea. Again, the people from the sea, which again, that's the other thing. They keep saying the people from the sea, and literally in this Odyssey, Matt Damon and his group keep being people who come in from the sea and interfere with stuff that's there, even though the things they encounter are usually scary in some way, and some more than others, but ultimately that's what keeps happening.
But like, even then, like the idea that they come in and then there's just destruction, like it's just constant over and over again. Troy, Cyclops Island, and then as we keep going down the list, it's as much as they feel they're justified to do it, they keep doing it. Like it doesn't matter at a certain point whether or not it's justified. One thing I did want to bring up, I'm sure people familiar with the Odyssey know of one specific thing that I'm not even sure when it was added or if it was a different translation or something, but when the Cyclops was blinded in the version that I am familiar with, he is able to speak. He is, you know, able to call out. And when this happens, he basically... maybe it's beforehand, maybe it's before any of this happens, but he makes conversation with Odysseus. Odysseus says, oh, my name is Nobody. And he's like, all right, that's a weird name, but sure, all right, your name's Nobody. So then when he gets blinded later on, there's a whole like grouping of colony of cyclops that are all there. And when he's blinded, he comes out screaming. And they all call out to him. They're like, "Hey, what's up? What's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, nobody has blinded me. Nobody." And he's like, they're all just like, "Oh, okay, cool. Weird to mention that, but all right." And so they all think he's fine, and that's what allows them to escape and not get caught by the rest of the Cyclops on the island. I think the movie does it a lot better, trimming it down. It makes it into this like more monstrous figure and doesn't make it something where his speech and something he is able to be reasoned with from an earlier state, because it does allow for them to, once again, do this justification of violence.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if the Cyclops was just speaking in such a way where it could have a conversation with them, would definitely change the dynamics severely. And depending on what you're doing with it, not necessarily for the worse, but I think the way it's presented and the way it's used in the movie, I think this made more sense to do it this way. So I think that works quite well. But when it does mumble to itself, they do kind of recognize part of what he says. And it basically has all the men convinced that they're now cursed on the water because they think he's the son of Poseidon. And sure enough, when they're back on the water, all of a sudden there's a lot of storms. It feels like, the waves are getting a lot more, hectic and heavy.
That is something from mythology, is all the Cyclops are descendant of Poseidon. So it makes sense there.
Yeah. I can't say I knew that going in, but yeah. But, and then, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the second island they get to, that's the one with kind of the I'll call them the giants in the armor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shifting trees.
Yeah. Because what's funny actually though is when they introduce these, because basically they fight, they're looking for stuff and they see what looks like someone from behind, and then it turns round and it turns out to be a child, but the child's quite
like huge.
Yeah, it's like adult size, but a child. Which that obviously kind of is like a tease of, well, if that's the child, how big are the adults? And then obviously you get the tall guys in the armor all chasing after them. When they were first introduced, though, because obviously you just hear sort of the clanking of the armor and you see them in the distance, I actually thought for a minute these were like automatons or something, because and obviously once you see them up close, you're like, no, there are beings in there. But the way they were walking, and because of the armor clanking, it sounded very robotic to me. I'm like, wait, are we getting some kind of weird like clockwork style robots or something?
Honestly, so here's one thing in this movie that I do think was an interesting choice, is in the Odyssey, the gods are very much characters. They are very much people present and speaking with their own motivations and choosing to be around. In this, we get, theoretically, as we have most of the movie presented to us, Athena is accompanying Odysseus in the form of Zendaya, and she's basically just offering up like, you didn't think this would be that easy, right? You keep on screwing this up over and over and over again.
No one else can see her. This is just like, like he believes he's seen Athena, and Athena is also the pin that his wife gave him, so that's why it's Athena specifically. But Athena keeps showing up and like talking to him throughout. I mean, this is what I was getting at earlier. I thought Charlize Theron was going to turn out to be one of the gods, and like she was keeping him on the island out of godly reasons, but obviously that never panned out. I thought that was how we were going to turn out to have a proper god character, but we never did.
Charlize Theron is Calypso. She's like magic adjacent. Like she knows of the gods, and it feels like she has a little bit of knowledge as to like what they want, but she can't pull any strings or anything like that. Yeah.
So anyway, the island with the giants in the armor, they all chase them down, and this is where the boats number 2 and 3 get the crap kicked out of them, because the giants do run into the water and start just tearing the boats apart like nobody's business.
And that is if I have to make one sort of geographical thing, this scene, the whole part of the fight scene, is not only the fact that these giants are coming after them, but the forest they're in, all the trees start shifting. And that's done very well. It's a very disorienting segment. They do manage to make their way out of the forest. However, during the boarding of the boats, as everyone's running back and then like the giants are chasing after them, I still felt like I had no idea as to what was like the actual going on until we had that one shot where Odysseus' ship is way out to water, and then we see the other two are being torn apart. And that's the first point I'm like, oh, okay, we're down 2 ships now. I didn't get that from the earlier sequence.
I mean, I think I was following it well enough. Admittedly, I think the idea of not like doing like a big wide shot and not like focusing on the supernatural or mythological entities I think that was very effective with the giant, because the final shots of the giant, of him like chasing, or I say the giant again, sorry, the Cyclops. When the Cyclops is chasing them into the water, like I love that he's kind of like out of focus in the background, kind of like dipping into the water. Like it feels very like this choice to not just shoot the Cyclops in these moments like he's a regular character in a movie, like sort of treating it like, oh, something so hard to comprehend in the corner of your eye, we can't focus on him in quite the same way, because it made it feel a bit more bit more ethereal and a bit more mysterious, and it kind of fit this idea of like, it's there and we feel the tension of it and we see enough to know that it looks good and it looks cool, but we're also going to kind of keep it at arm's length, so it's like, hey, this stuff is like outside the realm of man and we can't fully just accept it, so the camera can't accept it in the same way that we accept everything else we just show you.
Yeah, and for the Cyclops, I appreciate the way they did that. I still felt like I had a good idea as to what the damage was as we were leaving. They did a good job of showing, like, we still got two people in the water. He comes up, grabs them, squishes them. I think they did a solid job. But during the Giants, I felt like it was purposefully more chaotic, which lended a certain mood to the scene of like just trying to barrel out there as fast as possible, but I didn't feel like I got a good idea as to what the damage was until it was already all said and done, which again, maybe intentional, but it
was more of an adrenaline rush, that one, because it's definitely a much quicker like segment. But I mean, don't get me wrong, this visual of these 10-12 foot men in armor
massive
chasing after them was great, because obviously they're not as big as the Cyclops, which is why I think I keep accidentally calling the Cyclops a giant, but you know, they are giant in the sense compared to anyone else, so it's like, okay, this is interesting. And then once again, it's just one boat in the water now, they're struggling, they're getting really desperate, and then the next island they get to is the one with Cersei, and that one,
which this is where you did the Leonardo DiCaprio on the couch going like, hey, I know that one.
Yeah, as soon as she said her name was Cersei, I was like, oh, we can't trust her. Guys, I think twice about this. Because basically at this point, they've become a little frustrated with Matt Damon's choices, right? Odysseus' choices, to the point where when they arrive on this island, they're like, hey, we don't want you to come with us to go up there to that like building we can see.
We're tired of running back to our boat in a frenzy. Yeah. Can you please let us handle this?
And he's like, is this a mutiny? And he's like, that's up to you. And he's like, you know what, fine, I'll go hunt a deer so that, hey, if nothing pans out, at least I'll have gotten something for us. And like, yeah, that's fair enough. You go hunt a deer. So it's like, okay, so he's going to hunt a deer. And that obviously ties into the reveals that we get in a minute. Because when he does shoot the deer, he goes over to the body and it's turned into a man, and it's like, oh, that's problematic.
That's bad news bears. Something bad's going on this island.
But yeah, they all go up, and like, it's very weird because there's like several big cats. They pass a lion, a tiger, a panther, you know, a cheetah, whatever, and they're like, okay, that's strange. And they get to the house, and then Cersei's in there, and she screams at first when she sees them.
She's like, oh no, a bunch of men in armor with swords are in my house. And she's properly afraid. Like, it feels like that at least. And then they have to go over, try to calm her down and be like, hey, we're cool. We're not going to hurt you. Even if you don't, like, it's not a thing of, oh, you know, agree with what we have to say or we'll hurt you. We're not going to hurt you regardless. We just want some help here, please.
And she's like, okay, I'll make you all food, but you have to put your weapons and armor outside. I'm not comfortable with them in here. And that I actually thought that was not an unreasonable request on its own. Fine. Yeah. But when they go outside to put their weapons and armor down, and they look over and see lots of other weapons and armor from, dare I say, previous victims, that maybe the alarm bell should be going off a little bit, fellas.
Look, if there is any point in my life, like anything at all, it could be so much as like I enter into like a neighbor's house and they say, oh, take off your shoes at the door. And I take off my shoes and there's a pile of like 40 shoes next to that. I'm going to have alarm bells going off.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what the situation is. That's not okay.
Yes. For some reason in my head, I thought of like an even more extreme version of that, where I'm like, oh, put your child in that room there, and then you put the child in the room and there's just like 50 children all just crying.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say alarm bells are pretty normal there.
I don't know why, but just the idea of all these children just been left alive in a room, like, oh, your parents are never coming back. They've all been killed by the owner of the house.
I just imagine that horror movie where that happens, but the parents are like, nope, this is normal. Get in there, Billy. We're going to go have some dinner.
Oh, it's a big dinner party. This is just all the children of all the other guests that are coming. That's all this is.
And then they sit down at the table and it's just like 6 people.
Like, who are all those kids? Oh, Joe here's got 15 children. Don't worry about it.
Joe over there's Mormon. Don't worry about it. He's fine.
Doesn't believe in contraception.
There you go.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this is a fun sequence. Basically, it's kind of a gross sequence, actually, because, like, all the men, basically, they're so hungry that they all just kind of agree to this. They sit down and they start shoveling this food into their mouths. It's a disgusting scene to watch because they make it as unpleasant as possible, the way they're slurping all this shit up.
I feel like I pegged how they did it in a way, and maybe this was intentionally, like, to make it feel more uncomfortable. I got the vibe that they had, like, a bunch of food stuffed in their mouth, and then they were, like, pulling it out, and then they just played it backwards. Because there were so many scenes where I'm like, there's no way you're actually just like, oh, as deep as that's going in there.
I mean, maybe that. I mean, I feel like you can usually tell if something's been played backwards. It's got like a look to it, but I mean...
But it's also a very quick cut sort of scene. Like, it's very rough and jagged on the edges.
Yeah, but she basically goes around, now that they've been eaten, and starts to, like... Best way I can describe this is mold them into... Well, it turns out to be pigs. It's not clear what the animal's going to be up front, but she basically, it's almost like she's like, pulling the nose out a little bit, and she's like putting her hands in the mouths and like pulling the jaw out a little bit.
You hear the cracking of the bone.
Yeah. This is, again, this is why between this and the Cyclops scene, people are saying, hey, Nolan should do a horror movie because this is actually really interesting in a horror movie sense.
So,
and it feels different because I feel like most movies, if they did this type of scene, would probably have a bit more CG of like the faces deforming as she does it, but here it's more just, it's very subtle almost. It's almost like she's just pulling at someone's face, but then it'll cut to another angle and you'll see, oh no, that the mouse moved out a bit now, and it's like starting to look different.
You feel like sitting in the audience, like you're trying to see around like whatever's blocking the camera. You're trying to see like what's just off camera because you want to see more, and every once in a while the camera will just dip a little bit or pan past the like this half pig, half human hybrid, and you're like, oh god, never mind, I don't want to see it anymore.
Yeah, it's really effective the way it's filmed, actually. But obviously, once Matt Damon sees this deer turned into a human, he's like, oh no, what's going to happen to my men? I'm going to have to... And honestly, the biggest surprise I had at the movie, honestly, is probably that they all get turned back. I genuinely thought that was it. That's all his men gone, and now he's on his own. And we're not quite there yet, though. We're not there to... on his own.
Well, yeah, this is, as he's up there, he basically calls her out, just being like, hey, have you seen my men? And just like, oh, your men, I don't know, you want some food? You hungry? And like, they keep on doing the thing where he almost eats the food. He's almost about to do it, but he does manage to trick her. And it's basically like, so you said that my men, they showed up here and they passed on by and you let them go, no problem. She's like, yep, that's what happened. He's like, cool. Why is one of their rings still here? And he just shows that it's sitting there on the table. And she's like, all right, well, now I'm just going to kill you. However, there was a bird in a cage that I guess because he figured out that she transmutes humans into animals, because this bird is kept so special and separate, it must be someone important. So he reaches in and grabs hold of the bird. And she's like, all right, let's be cool. Let's talk this out. What do we want?
Yeah, she's basically Whiplash from Iron Man 2. She's like, I won my bird.
Yeah. No, it's a 1-to-1 character. Absolutely the same.
Yeah. So yeah, she agrees to turn them back. I mean, let's not gloss over the fact that she tries to have him slaughter one of the pigs for dinner, and he refuses and says, no, you've already got a stew going there. That's plenty for the two of us. No need to kill a pig. But yeah, he very nearly was going to kill one of his own men. Maybe not quite knowing that he was doing that, but I think he had an inkling. He's like, based on what I've seen so far, I don't want to be killing any animals just quite yet.
I'm going to go ahead and assume every animal I come across is actually a person, and we're just going to roll with that.
Which explains all the big cats outside as well.
tiny trivia difference, I think, again, improved in the movie. Apparently, he stays with Cersei for like a year, and like they have kids and stuff like that. It's a whole thing.
As you do, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Here's the thing about the original Odyssey. I think they make you feel where all 28 years were spent. I feel like this one, not so much.
No. It's already 3 hours long. We don't have to bloat it any further, please.
No, but then the final thing that Cersei does, as everyone's packed up, heading back down to the ships, is Odysseus is like, look, clearly you know magic. Clearly you're in with the gods to some extent. Can you tell us how to get home? And she's like, nah, you're way too lost. There's like, I can't help you with that. However, if you go to Hades, if you go to hell, there is a blind prophet there who can walk you through the process. And he's like, I don't think going to hell is generally a good idea. And she's like, you don't have a choice.
Yeah, so we go to Hades.
Yep.
You can almost do the Arrested Development narrator voice coming in. It's like, well, off to Hades they went.
And so Odysseus went to Hades, where Lucille was waiting for him.
What does a horse cost these days anyway? 10 what currency do they use? I have no idea.
10 silver.
10 rubles.
Yeah, I do want to say all of the stuff that we've been doing has been very much like island scenic, like Greek feeling sort of vibes to it. It's all been very good. They filmed this Hades scene in low light level Iceland, and it feels like, look, when I flew to the UK a couple years back now at this point, when I flew to the UK, we did a layover in Iceland. And I remember as we were coming into the airport, I looked down and I was like, Jesus Christ, that looks like the moon. This looks like an alien planet.
Yeah,
like it's just barren of vegetation, totally gray. Like, it's so strange to see. And seeing it here, I immediately recognized it. I was like, that is such a smart choice to film this otherworldly realm in Iceland.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's parts of it that are very pretty, but like, that definitely has a very different terrain and a very different look to a lot of it than most of the planet, for sure. Yeah. It's a very unique place on the earth. Lots of volcanoes, which keeps kind of,
Yeah, they specifically say like, oh, sail into Hades until you see a river of fire meet a river of ice, and it's like, yep, that's just a volcano. That's just what it is.
Yep. Which obviously, if you want to like be a dick about thinking about what's actually happening, there's like, okay, so in the past they just didn't understand what volcanoes were, and they're not really in Hades. He's just having like some sort of acid trip as they go to Iceland.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I do appreciate, and that's what I was kind of bringing up earlier, is that the gods in the book are characters, but in this, it's left a lot more up to like the natural forces. The idea that Poseidon is punishing them is not having to see Poseidon say, screw you guys for breaking my Cyclops eye. Like, it's the waves and the storm and all that stuff going on. Yeah,
the water's Poseidon, the sky and the thunder is Zeus, that kind of stuff. And there's a couple of moments where the lightning is very dramatic. It's like, that's Zeus making his opinion felt, everyone. Yeah. So... yeah, I mean, the Hades stuff is visually, again, super cool. Like, all this journey stuff. And he's basically told here from the prophet, and obviously he talks to the dead Elliot Page, and we see the army and all that, but he's basically said, yeah, all your men are going to die. And in fact, we could even tell you, like, you're going to go past the sirens, right? They're going to be lured out. And he's like, well, I won't let that happen. We'll put wax in their ears. They won't be lured by the songs of the sirens. It's fine. Like, that'll be fine. It's like, but yeah, they're going to die anyway. Here's how they're going to die. Like, you're going to be on your own.
He's literally just offering up solutions the whole way. Every time he's just like, all right, stop A, you're going to lose like half your men here. He's like, nah, I got to work around for that. Keep going. All right, stop B, you're going to lose the rest of your men. Nah, not going to happen. Stop C, if they're not dead already, here's where they're absolutely going to die. I'll figure out a way around it. Thanks for the tips.
Yes. And what I thought was quite interesting, because like seeing them try to get around some of this stuff was cool. When they go past the sirens in a little bit, it's a really well shot scene where they do muffle the sound so we can't really hear the song of the siren. But interestingly, Odysseus, feeling like I don't know, you could read this a couple of different ways actually as to why he wants to hear the song, because he has them tie him to the ship so he cannot be lured, but he's the only one who's not going to put the wax in his ears. And it's like, is this like he feels like he needs to be tempted because he has to suffer because he's already feeling guilty at this point? Is it because he's not quite there yet and he wants to be lured to feel that sense of longing and hope, I guess?
I mean, I think going into it, and especially after, because the sirens thing is just after Hades, like that's just after that portion. I feel like at this point, he still is in the mindset of screw the gods. Like the gods say, no one can hear the siren song and make it through. I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to prove that somebody can. And he does. And I feel like it's just that uppityness of him.
That's a good, well, it's kind of a mix of things. So I like what you said there, because it's this idea that maybe he's still trying to prove the gods are wrong. Because if the gods are wrong, then maybe he did nothing wrong by breaking Zeus's law with the whole Troy thing, right? It's like, okay, all right, I can see maybe why he's trying to convince himself of that. But I think it's notable that when he does this, and we get that one other guy in the ship who takes the wax out his ears and hears the call and jumps in the water and goes over to them, and you only see them in the distance. You see like vaguely, naked ladies in the distance on the rocks. But afterwards, Odysseus is like, that was horrific. Like, I felt like I sensed everything I wanted from this song. It was like everything I truly wanted. And the sad part is that I think it made me realize that deep down, I don't actually want to go home. And but it also made me feel how absent all the things I want are from me right now. So it's actually kind of torturous, and it's why you feel so compelled to go out to them. It's not just, hey, we'll have sex with you, mortal man. Like, because that's often how the sirens are presenting things, right? It's like, hey, sexy lady, you feel the urge, off you go. This was a bit more like, no. They are going to offer an answer to everything I feel I do not have and desire deep within myself.
Yeah. And then, like, as he's resisting, as the song is, like, fading away and all that, it changes to this idea of not only can we offer you everything you've ever wanted, as you are resisting the song, we're convincing you that, like, even the things you have are long past. Like, you have nothing. So you leave the sirens with less than what you started with.
Yeah, and that kind of fits his character because, when he broke Zeus's law, even if he's not come to the realization yet, he's kind of given up who he was. So this is all fitting into that. And again, the visuals and the sound of this, where he's basically screaming there tied to the ship as he's hearing this at a certain point, but really does. It presents the pain of it, and it's this idea of him finally like feeling all these things. So. Super effective sequence, and then after that you've got the whirlpool and like.
Can we back up a little bit before we go too deep into it? Because I do want to talk about the Elliot Page and Agamemnon in Hell real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So the Elliot Page, Sinan's character, the whole thing is he comes up, and we already discussed it. The idea of he's like, when I got into Hades, I realized, like, I heard from other people who died in the attack on Troy, that you were in the horse the whole time, and why didn't you tell me? And it's this whole guilt thing, and eventually Sinan's like, look, the only reason I'm here on this trip is because my brother, Robert Pattinson, effectively, like, convinced me to go in his stead. I never quite figured out what the transition between that and, like, their father was.
It seemed to be like, hey, like, he's going to have to be the man of the house when the dad goes, so he should stay back to like take care of everything. So send the younger one was, well, at least how he convinced everyone.
Right, because that's the thing. Every time he tells the story, it's this thing of how he desperately wanted to go, but Odysseus told him, "No, Robert Pattinson, you must stay behind and care for my son and wife." But he basically is just like, Sinon is just like, okay, well, my brother was an asshole. Here's the little lottery piece that enlisted me that should have gone to him. Take this back with you, and when you kill him, like, make sure he knows about this. Make sure he knows it's from me, because when he comes to hell, I want him to have that shame on him. And Odysseus like, yeah, cool, great. I'm totally down with that. No problem. And then Agamemnon steps forward. And again, with the ominous thing where everyone else steps forward, he glides forward. And I love that way they shoot him, but
and you can see his helmet sort of like in the sea of like other dead soldiers, right? Because it sticks out. He's taller. It's a more distinct visual to it. Yeah, it really sticks out.
And Agamemnon steps forward, and Odysseus is like, "Oh, damn! Did you not make it home either?" He's like, "No, I made it home Like, I was welcomed and everything seemed chill for like 6 hours. And then it turns out my wife got really upset over the fact that we sacrificed our daughter. And so she murdered me. And now I'm here. And advice to you, Odysseus, if and when you make it home, don't go in through the front door, man. Just scope it out a little bit. See where things are at. Because you don't know what's changed over like 30 years now.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, don't go in the front door with pomp and circumstance expecting to be welcomed like a hero. Be a bit more coy about it. Try and figure out where things stand. And that ultimately sets up all the things he does later on when he does get home, as he pretends to be a beggar for a bit and so on and so on. But we'll get into that.
Yeah. And then just to wrap up the Hades stuff, because they couldn't not, is as the prophet's just like, okay, that's your map quest stuff. You know where to go now. Do all the things you got to do. By the way, the dead are going to chase you back to your boat. Because it felt like we haven't had a chase in a while.
Yeah, so after the sirens is the whirlpool, and basically he knows what the result of this is going to be because the prophet told him. But again, we get this mystical creature like come out of like a hole in the cliff sides and like grab
that's
them.
The thing. The prophet gave 2 options. The prophet said, if you take option A, you manage to sail around the whirlpool, they will all die. If you take this more disastrous route, like through this canyon with this monster that's going to pick off some of them, only a couple of you will die. And that's like, you got to make that choice as what to do. So when they come up to the thing, Matt Damon specifically says, go past the whirlpool. Whatever you do, don't go down that canyon. But everyone's so distrusting of him now. They're like, nah, we're doing the canyon bit.
Which is intentional on his part. He basically bluffs them so that they'll do the thing that he wants them to do. And then afterwards, his second in command is like, you knew that was going to happen. And he's like, yeah, I kind of did. But then the other part of the prophecy is that like, oh, this island we're going to get to, we can't go there because everything there belongs to the gods. So we can't eat the livestock there. And the men are all like, but we have, we'll eat other stuff. We've got our own provisions. We'll find some fruit. We won't touch any of the animals. And he's like,
their boat got super damaged during the canyon. So like they've got to dock somewhere.
Yeah, they've got to dock and repair. And So, but he's like, okay, but everyone's got to swear then. Everyone's got to be on the same page here. We cannot, take care of the livestock. And they all just kind of nod. They all kind of agree to it. But they end up being there for weeks. And, their food runs out. Their provisions run out.
It's super like hinted at in the text of the movie. The gods are just dicking with them. They're purposely not letting them leave this island until they break.
Yeah, because they talk about how it was very easy to like sail up here. The wind brought them right in, but once they got there, the wind just wasn't there anymore. It wouldn't go.
No, the wind kept going. The wind kept pushing into the island, so they couldn't ever.
That's what I mean. Like, they couldn't leave. It would not push them away from the shore. So it's like, oh, we're just stuck here. And eventually, like, there's a couple of close calls where they're looking at some of the cows or whatever, and like, but they kick them away. And then one night, Matt Damon has like a little bit of a nightmare sequence, and he wakes up and he's like, where's the men at? And he walks over and he sees like a glow of a fire, and they've basically dug like a pit so they could try and hide where they're eating all their meat that they've just slaughtered. And he's like, he just sees them and they're all just like sitting there ashamed, like he's caught them with like, I don't know, heroin.
And he makes the point of like, did you think if you ate quietly the gods wouldn't see you? Like, is that what you were hoping for here? And they're like, nah, we were just hoping you wouldn't see us. Like, we'll take whatever we got to take from the gods, so be it. But like, we just didn't want this dad talk right here.
Yeah, and this is basically it for the crew. This is kind of what separates him from them.
The moment that they get back to the shore, finally the wind drops. Like, and they see they ate the cows. The wind drops. They're able to leave the island, and then as soon as they get out, the moment they get out to actual sea, Zeus and Poseidon double team this crew in like a 3-minute long section of just, nope, you're all gonna die. This ship is going down.
It's just carnage, chaos, the ship falling apart or ripped apart, and then ultimately, Matt Damon's going to wash up on the shore of the island where Charlize Theron is, with a healthy dose of. Well, I mean, he's not even awake for a while. She's kind of like nursing him back to health for a good bit of time.
Yeah, she's specifically saying like, look, I was nursing you back to health. you seemed like you were really going through some heavy PTSD stuff. So I decided to give you a couple of these lotus flowers, it's like a mind drug sort of thing. It would help ease you out of it. And then I just never stopped. And I think I was cool with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is kind of the pivot point in terms of like the straightforward timeline for me, where it gets a little less interesting. I think partly just because her motivations of like, I just wanted to keep you around because we're kind of a happy couple here. And I'm intentionally not letting you remember the fact that you've got a wife and a child, because that'll keep you from going home. And then just kind of how relatively easy the pivot is to him just starting to remember this stuff again. I don't know. Maybe there had to be like a little bit more there as to why she stopped trying to drug him. Maybe she started to feel guilty or something like that. Or whatever the case may have been.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, because the issue that arises, and exactly what the character says, is like, I kept you here because it seemed like it was too painful, blah, blah, blah. But something in you has recently been like coming out. Like you're recognizing, maybe you're getting over your PTSD and you're able to deal with the fact of like everything you've done all the way back to Troy. But like, he's been drugged the whole time. And I don't feel like they did a good explanation of what changed, what is different now.
And part of me wants to say, oh, is this like, you know, the gods are like, okay, he spent his 10 years or 7 years or whatever it was on this island with her. He's done his time, and it's you know, like he's now ready to try and go and make up for what he's done. But the problem is, though, like you said, he was drugged the whole time, so it's not like he was. It's like he was aware of what he'd done and who he was, and was serving like a prison sentence. He was effectively confused for 7 years, and I don't think that has the same weight to it. So I think this side of it, and it's kind of why early on I thought, oh, she's going to turn out to be someone who's keeping him here prisoner for a reason. But it ends up just being, no, she liked having him here and didn't want him to go back to his like previous family kind of thing.
It would be one thing if like she was reached out to by Poseidon and say, hey, dick with this guy for a while until I say so. But no, it just feels completely independent of all of that.
Yeah. So it's just happenstance effectively. Like there's like, because I thought, oh, the fact that he even washes ashore onto this island when the only island they were near before they left on the boat was the one with the animals that they couldn't touch. I thought, oh, like the idea that he even got here is kind of mystical in its own way. Like, oh, the gods carried him here on the water to this island for a reason kind of thing. And it never really feels like it amounted to much. Maybe you could read thematically like they did that, but like it didn't necessarily land for me.
I mean, I think when we get further in, and honestly, I feel like it kind of crescendos with the Agamemnon story of his wife killing him over the daughter, is the idea that a sacrifice is only worth what its cost is to the person making the sacrifice. And so the idea of this is not we're punishing Odysseus by punishing Odysseus directly. It's the idea that the thing that he values most is the livelihood of his crew. And so in order to punish him, we have to kill off his entire crew. Like, that's the only way that it really is going to be a punishment for him.
Yeah. Yeah, and then so one of the big reveals is because obviously we mentioned Zendaya, right? Shows up as Athena, does a couple of mystical words in his ear. No one else can see her. Brings up his guilt and whatnot. There is a reveal as to why she looks like Zendaya, right? And not in like a meta way. So why does she look like Zendaya? Oh, because Tom Holland's in the movie and he said, hey, can you cast my my partner, please?
The gods are really big fans of the movie Challengers, and I don't know why.
But no, it turns out is that when we do get that other extended part of the Trojan horse stuff, which is like the actual chaos in the city.
Once we start committing some war crimes.
Yeah. Like, you know, Matt Damon's looking around, he's seeing people be slaughtered, he's clearly looking a bit more conflicted because now it's not just the soldiers that are getting attacked, it's civilians. And in particular, he witnesses this young woman, Zendaya, be dragged up, put down, to be beheaded, and, you know, it does a cut to like a statue's head getting knocked off. So it's all very...
Probably Athena's statue as well. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's who he's seeing when he sees Athena. He's seeing the face of this innocent young woman who he feels... Like, I mean, he was already kind of starting to feel guilty and horrible about what they were doing in the city, but she was kind of like the tip of the mountain. She's like the face of it, is this young woman who he watched be killed, who didn't deserve it. and that's kind of like stuck with them all this time. So, it like that reveal kind of comes into it.
I think that happens when he's telling Anne Hathaway the story.
I think so.
On.
Yeah.
But yeah. It all basically just comes to a head wherever in here.
Yeah. Well, because at this point, in terms of the timeline and the narrative, is things are about to all coalesce in the sense that, and again, we've been kind of cutting backwards and forwards a little bit timeline wise, but at this point, Robert Pattinson's like, hey, someone killed Tom Holland already. Well, yeah, like we need to get rid of him.
Yeah. So they go to John Leguizamo, they kick his ass and say, hey, where's Telemachus at? And they get the information of where he's going to be at. And then that's when Odysseus shows up. He's pretending to be a beggar. He goes up to John Leguizamo, and again, he's blind, Leguizamo is. So he's not going to notice Odysseus. He's not going to like recognize him or anything like that. But Leguizamo's like, yeah, I really hope Odysseus shows up soon because his son's in some major trouble and somebody should go help him. And then says, oh, all right, well, I'll be right back. I'm going to go take care of that. I'm going to help you out here.
Yeah. And he does. He shows up and he stops the assassination attempt and does a bit of a badassery kind of, taking on everyone kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And of course, Telemachus, because there's no photographs in this time period, obviously. So I was like, oh, who are you? You fight very well for a beggar. He's like, I work with your father. I know him very well.
He's like, oh, you take orders from my father? Yeah, I have for a really long time.
So it's like, okay, here's everything that's going on. All the suitors, like Anne Hathaway is going to pick a husband in the morning. So she's going to get them all to like do a contest or blah, blah, blah. Right. But we have to talk about the dog, right? I guess the big thing here, we have to talk about the dog, who we didn't really bring up yet, I don't think. But early on, there's a flashback to kind of the start of this dog's life as a puppy, right? Where John Leguizamo is just going to like toss him aside because, this is not a worldly dog. But Odysseus is like...
Hold on. The word aside is very much in quotes there of off the edge of a cliff.
Yes.
But yeah... Fair.
But Odysseus is like, no, we'll keep that dog. This will be a good hunting dog. And he turned out to be right, but in the present day part of the story, and the Telemachus and all that, this dog's still there. He's very old. He's like 20 years old. He's barely hanging on. But the belief is that he's hanging on because he wants to see his master return, right? That he's staying alive just to see Odysseus come home.
Still Odysseus,
sorry, yeah. Yes. Brain's completely collapsing, apparently.
You're good.
Right, so they set this up, and there's a whole thing where, like, Robert Pattinson's like, oh, this dog stays outside because he's disgusting and old and we don't want to look at it, and, so he's just sitting on this cushion outside for, like, most of the movie. But when this... we're building up to Matt Damon coming in to talk to his wife for the first time, and she doesn't know who he is. It's through the screen and all that. But when he's coming into the palace, he's passing by the dog, and he sees the dog, and he kneels down and he pets the dog, and the dog kind of whimpers and finally dies. Like, oh, I can finally die now.
While wagging its tail, it's clearly happy. It clearly recognizes its master.
Yeah, and Tom Holland sees this. And this is his eureka moment of, wait a minute, you're my father.
Wait a minute, Daddy? He's like, no, I'm not your dad. I am a beggar.
Yeah.
Who, if I were your dad, would say that I'm very proud of you, son. And he's like, okay, wink.
Yes. And then there's a lot of like tension of him sitting there with his hood on, kind of in the room as all, Pattinson's saying all his stuff, and like it's everything's rising.
Yeah, Pattinson is again making plans. They're like, okay, so we couldn't kill Telemachus out on the road. We'll just wait until everybody leaves tonight, and then I'll just sneak in and stab him. Like, whatever, easiest plan is simplest there. But then he comes up as a beggar, and he's like poking the bowl at Pattinson and all them, and Pattinson's like, what could I possibly have for you, man? He's like, oh, actually, I have something for you. And he reaches in and he pulls out that little lottery thing that Sinon wanted him to pass over. And he's like, yeah, by the way, beggar's name. My name is Sinon. That ring a bell to you, Pattinson? And like, Pattinson still can't put the pieces together here because he doesn't believe that Odysseus would be this beggar. But he gets pissed and he starts attacking him, to which point that breaks Zeus's law and gives Telemachus the ability to say, all right, everybody get the hell out of here. Zeus's law has been broken. The feast is over. Screw all this.
But it's also notable that Telemachus, as he's watching this, like he's kind of like anticipating his father getting involved. But once this starts happening, you can see him getting notably uncomfortable that his dad's getting the shit kicked out of him. He's like, oh, but is this part of the plan? Is he just getting this, the shit kicked out of him? What's going on here? And then part of this as well, of course, is that he does go up to speak to Penelope through the screen door, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, yes, I've seen your husband. He was wearing this Athena pin, which lets her know that he's telling the truth, because that was kind of partly why she gave him it in the first place. It's like, hey, wear this pin, and if anyone ever says they've seen you, I'll ask them to say, what was he wearing? And if they don't mention the pin, I'll know they're lying.
I saw him in battle, but it's just a lot of blood. I couldn't make out anything under all of the blood.
But yeah, he goes on like a whole thing about what happened and like the guilt and all the rest of it.
It's the convergence moment. It's the moment where we get like, okay, we were actually the sea people, and I'm realizing all this stuff about my own guilt and my own everything else. We see Athena appears before him, and then when we get the reveal that it was actually a innocent girl who was slaughtered during the pillaging of Troy, she ends up disappearing, and we get that reveal as well.
It's like he's not burdened by her image anymore, because he's finally kind of owned up to all of this stuff. Yeah. And it's actually his words here that kind of convince her to finally like, okay, that's it. Tomorrow's a contest. Winner gets my hand in marriage. We're going to do this thing. And
Pattinson has like knife in hand, like he's about to kill Telemachus when she says this.
And basically at this point, we should probably mention that one of the things that was set up very early on, again, during sort of the dog stuff as well, these flashbacks, is that he had a very specific bow that he would use, and he was the only person who could string this bow. And one of the tests that she gives Telemachus in the middle of the movie, she's like, hey, you think you're ready to be king? Here, put the string in this bow. And he can't do it. But no one can do it. The only person who could ever do it was Matt Damon. It was Odysseus. Yeah. And one of the other things they set up is, and this is something that Odysseus does when he's hunting the sheep that turns out to be a deer, or the deer turns out to be a man, on the island with Circe, is that he doesn't think it's fair to just like kill from stealth. He always like plucks the bow first to alert the animals so that they've got a fighting chance. And everyone else is like, what you doing? That's our dinner. Why are you giving it a warning? Just kill the damn thing. But that's also set up, right? Because as much as I'm saying early on, I said that, oh, the emotional stuff of him returning doesn't necessarily quite land. Like this heart to heart with Penelope, the wife, doesn't necessarily emotionally do much for me. I'm not emotionally that invested in Telemachus and him being happy his father's home. But the mechanical little things they set up to do the reveals on, because they milk it. Like, he's in this room, he talks to Pattinson, he talks to Penelope. There's even a moment when he's talking to Penelope where the woman who like sees to things, like Penelope says, hey, wash this beggar's feet, and she's washing his feet, and she sees this scar that he got from like 20 years ago because he got hurt when he was out, and she even said, oh, how bad you want this scar to be, stop being a dick. And she recognizes it, and there's a little moment where he just looks at her and goes like, shh, don't tell anyone.
And he's like, not yet. And she's like, okay, I gotta go get more water for the feet, sorry.
Yeah, but those little things are well done, and it's all building up, and you realize what the competition is going to be. It's going to be, you need to string this bow. Whoever can string this bow can be my husband, right? That's what's going to happen.
But it's like a 3-part thing. It's string the bow, and then I don't think you actually said it because you went off into this other thing. He fires an arrow through a bunch of axes that are all like crisscrossed together.
Yeah.
So you got to hit like 6 of those in a row, and nobody else is like that good with aim or anything like that. And then thirdly, just for the sake of the thing, the doors are locked and all the weapons are taken. So nobody can fight. Nobody's able to do anything else until succeeds at this or everybody fails.
Which is actually one of those things where I think it's maybe Telemachus who talks to him, either that or maybe by this point generally like Asmo's figured out who he is. But basically someone says, well, how are you going to do this? Like all the weapons are gone. Like it's you versus like 30 men, and he's like, no, I think my wife has given me a weapon, because he's going to have the bow and arrow. He's the only one who's going to have something to potentially fight with.
And they do explicitly spell out here, he has to be the one that kills them. And he specifically tells Telemachus, you can't kill him, because all of these people are technically rich nobles from all the places that they come from. If at any point Telemachus kills any of them, he will be forced to basically go into exile as penance for the idea of like the families who want to get revenge on him. So it has to be Odysseus who does all of the kills.
Yeah. So the actual kind of like build up to the moment is well done. Like we get like almost a montage of like everyone trying. Except Pattinson, who's like, no, I'll wait my turn, and he just like he's trying to like push it off. He doesn't want to do it. Which, by the way, we haven't really mentioned this, I don't think, but there is one scene that reveals that him and Mia Goth are like having like a tryst or something.
He goes up trying to woo Anne Hathaway, and he's trying to say all like the smarmy little things to get in there. And when it's obvious like it doesn't work, or at the very least he's shaking her a little bit, he immediately runs off to like the side of the room and starts making out with Mia Goth. And it's like, oh, okay, he's just an asshole. Got it.
Yeah. But the whole time Matt Damon's in his hood in the back, and he's just kind of waiting his time. And eventually he steps up and says, oh, I'd like to try. And they all kind of laugh it off, like, you're just a filthy beggar, what is it? Like, hey, no, the rules say, like, he's got a right to try. And he comes up and he bends the bow to try and string it. And, seemingly intentionally, to be honest, right? He doesn't quite get it. And Anne Hathaway, like, there's almost like a little moment when he says, hey, I would like to try, where Anne Hathaway gets this look in her face where she's like, wait, who is this?
She's like 40% sure right now. She's like, I'm willing to see this one through.
Yeah, let's see where this goes. But then obviously the initial attempt seems to fail, so she turns around and starts walking back to her chambers. But then when she's walking away, he bends the bow, strings it, the guys all see it, and then he picks it up and he just plucks it the way that he always did before. And then that's the moment where she looks over her shoulder like, oh, it's him. Like it's his calling card.
Yep. And like we don't even, he fires off the arrow, but at that point it's just formality. Like everyone in the room is like, oh, that's Odysseus. Okay.
Yeah.
We're all screwed.
Yeah. So yeah, and then like some of them try and attack him. He fires off some shots, kills a few of them, and in the meantime, Logan Marshall Green is basically like breaking into the room with all the weapons, and that's where Telemachus tries to go and fight him off to try and stop him from doing that. To the point where he gets locked in, so he basically like kicks a hole in the floor so he can start dropping weapons in.
He just chops a hole in the floor ready to drop weapons on top of them.
Yeah, so some of them do get weapons, and Odysseus gets beat up pretty bad at one point. Telemachus gets stabbed at least once. Like people do get.
That's while fighting him. Yeah, while fighting Logan Marshall Green. I do appreciate that. Like anytime a weapon drops in, you got Robert Pattinson in the back who's trying to avoid the fight at all costs. Like he was the first one to bolt towards the door, and only to realize that they're still locked. And then as the weapons are dropped in, he's just like, "Grab the spear." Someone grab the spear and stab Odysseus. Like he's trying to put everyone else in front of him as this shield just to show what a smarmy little prick he is.
Yeah, and he seems to think he's in charge because he is barking out all these orders like they're all going to fight. And they do seem to kind of follow him. It's, I mean, they make him a coward. They make him all these things so that you're satisfied with his demise, and that all works. That's cool.
And then also throughout the fight, you see, yes, there are people attacking him, but there's also a growing number who just take the knee. And they bow, and it's like, you're good. We're not fighting. We recognize you as proper leader and all that. You do what you got to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is. I mean, like, I think this is perfectly well done, this fight scene, but it's definitely not as good as almost any of the encounters that he had on his journey, right? Like with the Cyclops, the Giants, Circe, the Sirens, Hades, like all that stuff is better than this fight scene, and that's just something that kind of occurred to me as I was watching this. I'm like, okay, this is fine. Like a couple of the moments are really well done with the pluck of the bow, which is like, oh shit, that's the moment where everyone realized who it is. Really well done in that sense. But the actual kind of like emotional impact and then the action of the fight itself do not remotely match the actual kind of the foreboding tone of the sense of horror of the journey and all the things they were encountering on the actual trip.
I think for me, and maybe it's, I don't know how much I'm bringing into this already, but I think for me, it's the idea of, I never felt, especially because we're down to just him now, I never felt like there was a chance he was going to lose. Like there was never a point in there where I was like, oh, maybe Robert Pattinson will manage to get the one up on him, or maybe it'll be like a duel death thing. I never got that vibe. I was always of the opinion of like, nah, they're both just gonna, like, he's gonna get the win, and then we're at least going to have a scene of a heartfelt reunion. Maybe he'll die. I'm not saying not, but it's still going to be a moral victory for him. I never felt like this fight scene had anything in terms of real stakes for Ithaca or anything like that.
Yeah, no one here felt like a proper match for him, right? Which I don't necessarily mind on paper, because I think there is something to be said of, like, you know, he got his mojo back effectively, right? He like, this idea of the hero or the superhero that loses their way, doesn't have their powers anymore, either literally or figuratively, and finds himself again, finds something to believe in, to come and, like, actually come back and be himself again, and that's the real victory. So yeah, he can feel a little bit unstoppable, but maybe they actually had it going too long and they tried to pretend that he could lose, and that felt almost like a bit disingenuous to the fact that, no, this feels like, no, he's already back. This should actually be more of a cakewalk at this point. But they want to try and milk it and create the drama of, oh, he might lose, but you never really believe it. So maybe that's one of the reasons why this falls maybe a little flat compared to a lot of the rest.
The only thing I could think, and I don't even know if this would work, it'd be very touchy, is perhaps killing off John Leguizamo to just really push Pattinson over the edge of, like, villainy and evilness. Because, yeah, I felt like he was smarmy. I felt like he's a prick. I never felt like he was truly evil. It just felt like he was conniving in a way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it adds to this idea that I think him, Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway, all those characters to me felt underdeveloped compared to the actual main stuff, to the point where I almost think that we maybe even shouldn't have seen any of them until Odysseus gets back, and just almost have that be its own self-contained kind of, like, you know, section of the film at the end, as opposed to all the framing devices, you know? I mean, I get what you're saying. I think that would have been more confusing for an audience to be dropped into that many in the third act, but I see the point you're making. Yeah, I mean, it depends. Obviously, you have to write with that in mind, right? But you'd have him, like, bring up his wife and son throughout the movie, presumably, so they wouldn't be, like, that much of a surprise. Obviously, it means you couldn't set up some of the things early on, like the bow and the plucking of the bow and the dog and all that stuff. So I mean, you could still set up some of that through just little things that Odysseus would be talking about. But yeah. But, you know, like, so obviously there's pros and cons to it. I'm not saying it's like a obvious fix for everything that I'm saying didn't quite work for me here in the ending. And it's never bad. Like, I want to make that clear. It's never bad, and it's never not at least very, very competent for in the most sense. And there's specific moments or details with the plucking of the bow, or the moment like when he is sort of, like, confessing up, you know, why he has all this guilt and, like, all these bad things that happened at Troy, and we see the rest of that flashback. That stuff is great, and I think there is good things sprinkled throughout there. It's just that these other characters and the conflict with Pattinson and all the suitors coming after the wife, I don't think that ever leveled up to actually feeling like it was the real concern. So I guess maybe pretending that there's actually stakes in this fight is maybe why it feels a little bit off to me, because ultimately this was never going to be the real challenge, right? This was always going to be relatively easy for him once he came in and he'd found himself again. So maybe trying to pretend that it does have these stakes is just a little bit off for me. But, you know, and it's after this, of course, because they do try and tease that he's dying at the end, and she's like, no, please don't die, you just got back. And then obviously we find out, no, he's alive. He's got a bandage on his neck, but he's fine. I think he literally says the idea of, like, oh, I made it back and I saw my darling Ithaca one last time. And she's like, wait, what? Hold on, what do you mean one last time? You can't die. I mean, he's like, oh, sorry, I should have been more clear. Remember that exile thing I said? Yeah, I just killed all of the noblemen. We gotta bail. Yeah, we gotta leave Ithaca. I'm pretty sure the Prophet also said something about getting into exile and traveling west as well, right? That was something that was... So, no, that was... Yes, I think it was the Prophet, but specifically throughout this movie, he's had to leave the dead behind. And, like, every time he has something, them running to the boats, he's had to leave the dead behind. And everyone criticized him, saying, hey, that's not how we treat our dead. You got to treat them with honor and respect and bury them. To which the Prophet said, look, if you want to make atonements for that, if you want the gods to be cool with you, you need to go west and you need to make a sacrifice in the far off unknown lands or whatever. So go with your wife, go do that and take care of that, and then you and the gods will be chill. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, though. It was set up that he'd have to travel west after he's done everything.
Yeah. I don't think it said exile, but he was basically saying, like, that's something you got to do when you get back.
Yeah, but they kind of married each other up, though.
Because that's another bit that the Anne Hathaway bit was saying was right before he goes off to the Trojan War, she's like, let's just leave, and we'll go out and we'll sail west after the setting sun. And they managed to merge the two together of repeating the same lines of chasing the setting sun and all that.
Yeah, so... But on the boat at the end, though, they've left Tom Holland to become king, effectively. And he basically, this is the part where he's like, yeah, there is no people from the sea. It's actually just us, right? Because we did this at Troy, and that created this sense of fear where now everyone doesn't assume that Zeus's law is going to be followed. They are now scared of people who are coming in, and they're taking drastic action out of fear. We have changed this. Now, actually, somewhat there's a line, not in that scene. I think it's when he's talking to her before, when he's pretending to be the beggar, or maybe it is the ending. I can't remember which scene it was. But there was a line that someone pointed out on a stream before I saw the movie. Someone was making fun of the fact that there was a line of dialogue that said, "Our age of bronze is coming to an end," and I have to admit, it is a little bit funny. Because I'm pretty sure in the Bronze Age, they didn't think of themselves in the Bronze Age, you know? Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that was a thing.
I mean, correct. I'm sure that they knew they made bronze, but I wouldn't, that's like calling, well, I mean, to be fair, that might be a thing. To call now the Silicon Age.
Oh, I've never heard that. Don't get me wrong. Like, there is definitely a bit more of a self-awareness to things in the last, 100, 200 years, because I feel like the industrial age, I'm sure, probably was said during the industrial age.
Yeah. The thing that you can't point to and be self-aware of is when it's ending.
Yes.
You can't point to it and say, like, this is the end of the age. It's like, is it?
Yeah.
I feel like that could continue on for a while.
Because there's kind of this idea of, like, oh, civilization's basically falling apart because of this, but it'll rebuild after. And, it's like, so, okay, this was the end of what civilization was up until this point, and then,
Yeah. I mean, it's
just
afterwards. Just to translate it back to, like, us being in comics and all that stuff. Like, it's changing now. We are making a push to move out of it, but we've been in the modern age since 1985.
Pretty much.
And it's like, maybe there should be a change somewhere around, like, the mid-2000s or something to, like, say maybe we moved into something else somewhere along the way.
Yeah. Anyway, so, I mean, the movie wraps up there. I will say it's the moment where it cuts to black and says directed by Christopher Nolan, I thought was not necessarily that impactful. It didn't feel like the final shot kind of like it dropped a bombshell on you,
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just a boat sailing at the sunset, pretty much. Yeah. But so they're off to, I guess, America because they're going west.
I don't know. Maybe France. Maybe they run into Spain first, something like that.
I feel like, but they know about those places, though. I feel like the idea is they're going west into the unknown, which in this time would be the Americas.
No, that's fair. They hit Virginia. Oh, no.
Yeah, it would be a little bit darkly, ironic if, like, they end up, like, being not the ones who actually, like, colonized America, but like after everything that happened in the story of, like, going to all these islands, breaking Zeus's law, that they end up being a little precursor to arriving in America and, like, being dicks to the natives. Before, long before Chris Columbus and everyone else who followed.
I'm just looking up how much of the world was known to ancient Greeks, and they basically knew the Mediterranean Sea. Like, everything along the coast there, they got mapped, but, like, I'm looking at, like, the shape of Europe as we go up towards the UK, and it's just nothing. They know nothing about that area. You hit the Atlantic Sea and you assume it goes on forever.
Oh, interesting. So France and Spain, were they?
They knew at least the southern coasts, but like I said, once you hit the northern coast, it's like something issue.
Yeah, I suppose in some ways that kind of explains why they don't expect their boat trips to be that long, if that's the small sort of window they consider the world right now. I guess that makes some sense, because I guess in my head I'm like, they're traveling, like, so far in these boats, but I guess they're not really in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, no, I mean, I agree with you. I think the cut to black was kind of whatever, but If I had to point to like the high point for the narrative of the movie, it would be that conversation at the screen with Anne Hathaway. I think that like all the threads coming together, everything doing that, you felt it didn't feel conclusive because obviously we still need to see him taking back the kingdom. But I also think that there's something to be said where he could have stood up and cast off the robe in that scene and said, "It is I, Odysseus, have returned." And I would have accepted like that to be the thing. Like I wouldn't have needed all the suitors killed either.
I think the other part of this, and this maybe ties into not really caring that much about Telemachus and Penelope, is that this whole idea of like Ithaca needs a king because it's defenseless from the people from the sea. I think that side of it and caring about Ithaca having a leader is something that I never really felt all that strongly about either. So it wasn't something where I was like, oh, like it needs its king back for this. I think for me it was more about Odysseus, just like him coming home because he finally deserves to get home, as opposed to you know, like he needs to save the day kind of thing.
No, and Anne Hathaway almost even makes the point of that, just being like, hey, I've literally been doing everything for the entire time he's been gone. Like, Ithaca's still fine, but they make the point of saying like, yeah, but we need to raise an army, and you being a woman is not going to allow that to happen. And I think they're trying to thread this very strange needle where she's hyper competent in doing all the things that need doing. She just can't do this one thing. But this one thing is also something that's not actually a real threat. It's just this vague, like, as we find out, it's just Odysseus himself. He is the people from the sea. Yeah.
And it's just, but also just the idea that other people are becoming the people from the sea, because everyone's starting to change their mentality and the way they believe things is starting to change. So it's possible that some army from the sea will come at some point, but it's not because it already exists or it's this specific designated group or anything like that. It's just they're
called the Romans. That's what's going to happen.
Eventually, they'll be the people from the sea, but like it's interesting. But I mean that's kind of how the movie wraps up story wise, though. And there's lots of, like, this is the thing, like, even in the parts that I don't care as much about, there's good things that were set up that are paid off. But you know, that fight scene does go on for a long time, and there's a lot of trying to get the weapons into the hole in the ground and all that. It goes on for quite a bit, and I don't know if I was invested in enough or thought the fight scene was good enough to actually warrant as much time as actually spent on it. But all the stuff on the trip, like the island stuff, each island they go to where they encounter Cyclops, giants, Circe the witch, Hades, sirens, all of that stuff is great. And the tone and the sense of just doom that's kind of like lurking over them the entire time is like maybe like my favorite thing about the movie is the atmosphere of like, it's almost like, this is a weird thing to compare it to, but it's almost like the Blair Witch Project, where it feels like no matter where they go, they're not getting out of this forest. And that's kind of what it feels like on that boat, where no matter where they go, they end up at another island where there's something else that's going to cause them danger or harm. And that's kind of it.
I mean, I also like that that's also the way that the gods are presented as well, of like, you have made an affront to the gods at large. You have gone against Zeus's law. You've committed this affront. We're going to just dick you around for a little bit. Even if you feel like you know where you're going, we're going to toss you around and we're going to spin you around and you're not going to have any idea.
Yep. So the movie's very good. I don't want anyone to come away from this thinking that I think this is anything less than very good. It is very good, but it could be amazing. And I think there's just a few things that aren't quite up to that standard for me to really feel that way. So it's not like one of my favorite Nolan movies, certainly.
That's fine. I mean, I think I'm a little bit higher on it than you are, but that's just in terms of, I think that the scale of it and the way that it manages to balance that scale while still having such a tightly written theme that keeps on coming back up over and over again is something that's very well done, and something I don't think I've really seen many other directors manage to pull off that well. Because when it gets to this size, not even just length, but just scale of the production, I think that there is this tendency to lean more towards into the spectacle than tight writing.
Yeah, and the spectacle's fantastic. If you compare it to Oppenheimer, the thing that it has over Oppenheimer is the spectacle of all these adventurous bits. whereas Oppenheimer, I think, had the stronger weight to it, I guess, out of the two. But like I said this way back at the start of the review, but this idea that you can kind of split Nolan's career into two halves almost, like, I think fundamentally is as good as Oppenheimer is, and this movie is still very, very good. And I enjoy Tenet. I think Tenet's got some cool stuff in it. Like, ultimately, that first half, though, with the Batman movies, but let's ignore them because they're kind of like a third-party thing, right? Like, if you give me one list, which is Odyssey, Tenet, Oppenheimer, Dunkirk, and then the other list is Inception, Memento, Interstellar, right? I'm picking that list as the one that appeals to me more, and the one that sort of connected with me more. And I think it's natural to happen. Like, all directors go through these changes where they have these different eras, and it's a credit to Nolan that it's not like a quality dip era where some other directors absolutely just have that. Where you look at John Carpenter, who, like, in his heyday, like mid-70s John Carpenter to like late 80s John Carpenter is like, there's a couple of just okay movies in there, but most of it's gold. Like, most of it is just like all these bangers. And then you get to the 90s and something happened where the quality just nosedived, and you just kind of accept that, oh, well, there's the good part of his career and then there's the bad part of his career. That's not what's happened to Nolan. This is not a quality dip, but certainly the types of movies that he is making, he is shifted to these different types, historical movies or more big kind of like epic movies, which are very different than the more cerebral, I've got a cool sci-fi idea. Because as big as the budget and the spectacle, you could argue, for something like Inception is, the core idea is still a very cerebral, I've got a cool sci-fi concept that I want to play with for 2 hours or whatever. Which is very different to like the Odyssey, which is, no, I'm going to do a 3-hour epic that is going to try and like really tackle the nature of man and guilt and all the rest of it.
But you can still see the underlying threads of similarity. Like, again, the nonlinear storytelling idea, which obviously Memento is like the golden horse in terms of non-linear storytelling.
Well, the funny thing is Inception is actually one of the most linear movies he's ever done. There's a couple of little flashbacky things as he's telling stuff, but it's actually a pretty linear central narrative.
If you're talking about like chronologically A to B to C, yes, but the fact of like these different levels of story, that's what makes it non-linear.
Well, that's not linear story-wise. It's a different.
Well, I don't have a terminology for it. I don't know how to better.
Well, that's because it's that unique. It's such a unique mechanic. There's not a word for it, but like it's still linear. Memento and Prestige are very non-linear. Those are very like wacky in their structure. And then Tenet takes the idea of the story structure and makes it part of the plot. Yep. Which is why that one's so wildly confusing to most people.
Yep.
But anyway,
I still feel like I've watched it at least 3 times. I still feel like I don't get Tenet. Like I understand the plot. I understand like everything that's happening, but I still feel like there's this missing piece to Tenet that I just don't get.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that is the Odyssey. All right, David, let's rate the Odyssey out of 10. What are you giving it?
I feel very comfortable in my rating. I didn't know if I would. I think when we came to the end, it was a thing where I was up between 2 different ratings that would have very different connotations. But I feel comfortable.
Either a 9 or a 4. It's such a weird divide. You didn't know where you stood.
In between. No, it's look, I was between an 8.5 and a 9. And I think that 9 does cross that threshold of like an all-timer. I don't quite feel that strongly. I think that this one is an 8.5. I think it's great. I think there's so many positive qualities about it. But I do think this is going to be one of those ones where people will remember the quality of it, but it doesn't feel like it's going to have that same kind of cultural zeitgeist that some Nolan films have able to like tap into, where we're just going to keep coming back to it over and over again. So 8.5. Technical qualities absolutely bring it up that high at the very least, and yeah, it's a solidly made film.
Yeah, what's funny is that when I finished the movie and I was walking out of the cinema, I definitely felt a little bit disappointed, and I think it's because the stuff I didn't like was mostly at the end, so it kind of left me and like, despite all the things that I thought were great as I was watching it, the final part is kind of what you're left with. And I kind of left thinking, I think I'm going to be kind of lukewarm on my score here. Talking it through though, like it's much easier to see all the things that were great and all the things that were still very good. And I think it maybe kind of bumped me back up a little bit compared to everything. I was saying that I thought of something else I wanted to bring up during the ratings rundown. It was, I was talking about during the review that like his Odyssey of like all these places he goes to feels like this long turmoil that he can never escape until he's kind of like went through, he's changed, and he's kind of like come to realize why he's guilty and why he regrets these things and what his penance is for and all that. I think because of that and that sense of, we can never get out of this and all of his men are going to die, the way that he just kind of like realizes it's time to go now with Charlize Theron feels so quick and lazy by comparison. And that's why that particular section of her stuff really leaves me with a bit of a sour taste. That's really kind of the pivot point for me, even though there's still obviously some good stuff after that with the final Troy flashbacks and some of the moments towards the end. But despite all that, the actual journey of the Odyssey stuff is very good. And I wonder if like a rewatch down the line where I know where it's going and I know what the flaws are, I might even forgive them a bit more because I can enjoy what I like about it a bit more without waiting for it to blow my socks off effectively. So I think it does at least get to the 8. Like I still think it is great ultimately, and I'm even toying with the 8.5 for just how great some of the visuals are, but I think I'm going to rein it in and just say an 8 because ultimately I think the cold feeling I had from some of the characters coming together at the end and just my disinterest in both Tom Holland and Anne Hathaway's characters just kind of stop it from going above that flat great. It is still great for all these other reasons, but it does have weak spots, and I think those are the weak spots. So
yeah,
there you go. 8 out of 10.
And I think we can both comfortably say it makes the cut.
Yeah, it makes the cut. Yeah. It's not a cut above, but it makes the cut. I think, when I was talking earlier about the two lists of Nolan movies from the first half and the second half of his career, I guess maybe the other way to define them is that most of the movies in the last decade that he's done have been based on something, whether it's like history or a book or, whatever it is, Tenet being the exception. But yeah, I would kind of like him to do another just original sci-fi concept of his own would be nice. Because I think ultimately that's just more exciting to me than him doing a World War II movie or doing, something based on an old story. Like I get why this appealed to him, and I get it was like maybe a challenge and something different for him. But, I hope whatever he's doing next, that's just a little bit more original again.
Yeah. I will say that when it comes down to adaptations, there are some movies that have the adaptation. Like, stop trying. We've hit it. This is the one that everyone's going to watch when it comes down to that. I do think, at least for the time being and for the foreseeable future, this is the Odyssey adaptation. Yeah. I don't foresee anybody stepping up and saying, I can do better than that for really any point of time in the future. I think that this is going to be the sort of thing that people are going to look at and say, oh, I don't have to read the book. I watched the Nolan movie.
And I think the general opinion on this movie is very strong. Like there are some kind of like nitpickers who are like, the language or this or that or whatever. But for the most part, it does seem like it is being praised heavily. It's making lots of money. It seems like it is having cultural impact, which is cool. If anything, I would say that I am actually slightly on a more negative end of the spectrum compared to what I think the general opinion is. But that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we're on the negative end and still getting 8s and 8.5s.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, things are still great. But like, I would never take this over an Inception or Memento. Like, like I just wouldn't.
Yeah, but no, that's fair. And I mean, that's also just your sensibilities, your styles. Like some people, I'm sure, think Oppenheimer and Dunkirk are his like top tier movies because they are these gritty, realistic war things that he did. And it's just a matter of taste at a certain point.
For sure. For some people, that's absolutely going to appeal to them more than what I like from his earlier stuff. But it's the same thing with to an extent with Spielberg, where like up until about the mid-90s, like I would say Spielberg's golden era was there, and then since then I've not really been that interested in a lot of the things that he's made. And it's not 1-to-1 with Nolan, because Nolan's still making very high quality movies, but there's a lot of directors who have that pivot point where like there's kind of a period where this is the stuff that I love, and then there's this period where I'm not as enthusiastic about it because things did change, and he's not making exactly what I like from him in the first place. Now, you know, maybe that'll change with the next movie, and I'll feel like, oh no, this is back to like what I love about Nolan in the first place. But inherently, his movies from the past decade have not appealed to me as much as his like first half of his career.
And that's I also wonder how much of it is something of the man who has everything. You know, the idea that we gave this man a blank check ever since Dark Knight. He can do whatever he wants. Maybe he's done everything that like he really wants to do. Everything, all those like really deep creative sparks he's had in his mind since beginning his career, he's expressed. He's done his Tenet. He's done his Inception. Maybe now it is a thing where he's just going to feel inspired on the fly, and it's going to be a thing of like, oh, I think that the Odyssey has not been done in a while. Let me take a crack at it.
Yeah. So no, it's interesting. But there you go. That is the Odyssey, which is interesting because it means next time on Collector's Cut, we get to start a whole new season. We get to go into submarine season. There was a vote on Patreon a couple months ago between submarines, trains, and planes, and submarines was the victor. So we'll be starting that off next week with The Enemy Below, a 1950s submarine movie. So,
you know, it's a good thing I don't have like a phobia of the sea. Between all of these movies we're doing.
Yeah, but we got a couple of 50s movies, then we go into the 80s, 90s, you know, going through kind of some of the big mainstays, of course, will be in the season, but we'll do a couple of classic ones as well up front. So starting with The Enemy Below next week. But otherwise, you can support Collector's Cut over on Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Helps out a bunch if you do. Keeps the show coming. You get some bonus stuff like the ratings rundown segments. Once a month, we also do a bonus show called Extra Reels, where we review some of the worst movies ever made. This month's was a film called Lupita. Last month we did Halle Berry's Catwoman. So we hit a variety of absolute trash from the bottom of the barrel. So if that sounds like fun, you can get that on Patreon. But yes, thanks to everyone who already does support us. It really does make a difference and helps keep the show coming. But that is the show. That is us. So, you know, and maybe you noticed this earlier on, but our t-shirts probably changed very suddenly in the middle of the review, about 40 minutes in. That's because David had a power cut yesterday and we had to come back and finish today. So hopefully this was a smooth sailing and you didn't really notice the transition too much. But
I said some very negative things about Zeus in the middle. He was not fond of them.
Yeah, the thunder came out. But yeah, I'm realizing though that the runtime of this review is actually quite hefty because we've been sitting here recording for about 2 hours now, and we did like 40 minutes yesterday. So hopefully you enjoyed this extra long conversation, and we will see you next time for what I'm pretty confident was a much shorter discussion because we already recorded it. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys next time. Keep watching movies, and if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.